One night, a pregnant young woman clutched her belly and fled, secretly giving birth to the chairman's two sons alone. Alara Vance, a simple, kind-hearted young woman, became pregnant after a single night with the man she loved, Damian Blackwood, a cold and powerful CEO. When she told him the news, she wasn't met with congratulations, but with a cold command to terminate the pregnancy as he was about to marry another woman. Heartbroken, she left. New York City gave birth to twin boys and raised them in solitude in Los Angeles for 7 long years. 7 years later, when fate forces them to meet again, will a heart once shattered have the strength to love again? This is a journey of tears and resentment, but also one filled with love, redemption, and the unbreakable bonds of family. 7 years ago, on a rain-slicked night in the heart of Manhattan, Alara Vance pulled her thin coat tighter as she slowly walked into the lobby of St. Jude's Hospital. Her hand trembled, clutching the lab report. Everything spun when the doctor confirmed she was pregnant. It was the result of a love she believed was real. But before the joy could fully register, a wave of anxiety crashed over her. The man she thought would be her safe harbor, Damian Blackwood, was always an enigma. He was successful, powerful, but incredibly cold. She dialed his number, her voice shaking. "Damian, I need to talk to you. I'm coming over." He grunted an affirmative on the other end, not asking any questions. The dial tone that followed made her heart pound even harder. The rain was torrential, but she hailed a cab and sped toward his luxury penthouse on Park Avenue. Standing before his door, she took a deep breath for courage and knocked. The door swung open, revealing his handsome but indifferent face. Damian's dark eyes looked at her without a trace of warmth. Alara bit her lip and held out the lab, report her voice a mere whisper. "I'm pregnant. It's yours." She had imagined he would be surprised, perhaps even happy, but his expression barely flickered before returning to its usual stoicism. He took the paper, glanced at it, and his brow furrowed slightly. Instead of questions, he said 3 cold words. "Get rid of it." The words were a knife to her heart. She thought she'd misheard, standing frozen for a moment before stammering. "What did you say? This is your child." "Don't you want our baby?" He crossed his arms, his eyes empty, devoid of compassion. "I don't want any complications right now. I'm preparing to marry Victoria Davenport." His voice was flat. "It's a wedding that benefits both of our families. Keeping this baby is pointless. Get rid of it and we'll pretend this never happened." Her heart went numb. His callous words brought tears to her eyes. She choked back a sob, trying to reason with him. "You can't be this cruel. I truly love you. This baby is the result of our love. Please give our child a chance." He let out a dry, humorless laugh and stepped closer, his gaze icy. "Love. You think I need love from someone like you? The person I need by my side is Victoria. She's the one worthy of standing next to me. You were just a moment of fun. Don't delude yourself." The pain was so intense her legs trembled, tears streaming down her face. She wiped them away hastily, her voice hoarse. "I won't get an abortion. If you don't want our child, I'll raise him myself." He grabbed her wrist, his voice a low growl. "If you're stubborn, don't blame me for being ruthless. You know what I'm like. I will never acknowledge this child." She snatched her hand back, gasping for breath as tears rolled down her cheeks. "You'll regret this." Without waiting for another word, she turned and fled from the penthouse, her mind in chaos. The rain outside mirrored the storm of pain and despair in her heart. She didn't know how long she ran before collapsing into a taxi, sobbing to the driver to take her back to her small apartment. That night she cried until she had no tears, left her resolve to protect the child in her womb hardening into steel. 3 days later, she packed her things and left New York City. At the airport, she left a short note for Damian. "I'm leaving, and I'm taking the child you rejected. I don't need anything from you." She knew he wouldn't care. From now on, she would bear everything alone. Time flew by. 7 years passed. In a cozy little apartment in Los Angeles, Alara had given birth to twin boys she named Leo and Noah. In the early days, she had to do all sorts of odd jobs, cleaning houses, working retail, even staying up late to do freelance translation work. She endured every hardship as long as her sons were fed and cared for. When they were sick, she stayed up all night watching over them. More than anyone, she understood the loneliness of having no one to share the burden with. But she motivated herself to persevere for the sons she had chosen, for the life she had chosen as a single mother. Over 7 years, she gradually climbed the ranks to become a senior project manager for an international firm. No one knew her past. They only saw a capable, determined woman with a will of iron. By her side were always 2 adorable, intelligent boys, her endless source of motivation. She taught her sons to be well-behaved, but never mentioned their father. Whenever the children asked where their dad was, she would only smile sadly. He's very far away and can't visit. They understood that their mother was their everything, and they didn't ask for more. One day, her boss called her in. The company was opening a branch in New York City and wanted her to return to the country to manage it. She was stunned. Old memories flooded back like a nightmare. For 7 years, she had avoided that city. But the ambition for her career and the opportunities for her son's development made her reconsider. In the end, she agreed, though her heart was filled with dread. What if she ran into Damien again? Would she be strong enough? The night before the flight, she sat watching her sleeping sons. Their innocent faces made her heart ache. She gently held Leo's hand, then Noah's. "I promise I won't let anyone hurt you." No matter what past she had to face, she would protect them at all costs. Early the next morning, she took her sons to the airport. Throughout the flight, they chattered excitedly about New York while she just stared silently out the window. Memories washed over her the day she was thrown out, the sound of the rain, his cruel words. It was all etched into her heart, creating the guarded, resilient Alara she was today. When the plane landed at JFK, Alara led her 2 sons into the terminal. The bustling crowds, the bright lights. New York was still as dazzling as ever. She lifted her chin, a cold smile on her face. "I'm back, but I'm no longer the weak girl I once was," Leo asked curiously. "Mom, why is everyone staring at us?" She chuckled and ruffled his hair. "Because these 2 little boys are so handsome, of course." The 2 children giggled and her heart warmed slightly. She hailed a taxi to the new apartment arranged by the company. It was centrally located with modern furnishings, enough for the 3 of them to live comfortably. After they settled in, she let the boys choose their beds. Noah ran around excitedly while the more serious Leo neatly arranged his study corner. Seeing this, she smiled. As long as her children were happy, she could endure any hardship. After unpacking, she had barely a moment to rest when her boss called to inform her of a formal meeting the next day with the management of their partner company. She sighed and nodded. "Yes, I'll be ready." It was better to dive into work immediately, a way to escape the painful memories. Night fell. The 2 boys sat on the sofa watching TV, laughing and playing. Alara prepared her documents, occasionally glancing at them, her mind in turmoil. She wondered, is Damien still here? He's probably married to Victoria, and maybe they're happy. Whatever his situation, she didn't care. She just hoped their paths would never cross again. She looked at the clock and decided to go to bed early to be fresh for the meeting. The next morning, she applied light makeup and put on a tailored pantsuit that accentuated her professional demeanor. She looked completely different from the small, timid girl of the past. Her eyes were determined, her posture poised. She instructed the boys to look after each other at home. A temporary nanny would be coming to help. Leo said, seriously, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll protect my brother." Noah cheekily added, "Can you even protect yourself?" She laughed, ruffled both their heads, and quickly left. The partner company's skyscraper was in the heart of the financial district. She took the elevator to the 30th floor where the management meeting was being held. As she stepped into the conference room, she felt the formal atmosphere. Directors and department heads stood around, all maintaining a serious, professional air. She confidently walked in and introduced herself briefly. "I'm Alara Vance, the new branch manager for Horizon Dynamics." People applauded politely. She smiled faintly and sat down. The meeting facilitator began, "And now let's welcome the president of Blackwood Enterprises, Mr. Damien Blackwood." Hearing that name, her heart lurched. That dreaded name echoed in her memory. She forced herself to remain calm and looked toward the door. Sure enough, the tall man with the familiar face from years ago walked in slowly. Her breath hitched. He regally took his seat at the head of the table and greeted everyone in a deep voice. His eyes scanned the room, then froze when they landed on Alara. Their gazes met, and for a second all sound seemed to fade. But it was only for a moment. She immediately looked away, feigning indifference. He didn't say anything either, just frowned slightly as if trying to place something. Finally, he started the meeting outlining the collaboration plan. She focused on taking notes, avoiding his gaze at all costs. Throughout the meeting, she answered questions concisely and professionally. Occasionally, she felt his eyes on her and her heart fluttered, but she showed no emotion. Everyone praised her sharpness while he listened in silence. At the end, he suddenly asked her, "Miss Vance, how long did you work in Los Angeles?" She maintained her professional smile. "I was there for 7 years." He nodded without further questions, but his eyes held a complex, unreadable expression. The meeting ended, and most people left with only a few lingering to chat. She was packing her documents ready to leave when he unexpectedly approached her. "Elara," he said softly, "are you doing okay?" She looked up, her gaze as cold as ice. "We're here to discuss business. Anything else is irrelevant." He seemed taken aback, then gave a bitter smile. "Right." Without another word, she turned and walked away, her heart pounding. After all these years, she thought she was ready, but she never expected to meet him again in this context. She took a deep breath, reminding herself to be strong. From now on, she would only see him as a business partner, nothing more. In the afternoon, she rushed home to pick up her sons and take them to a prestigious private elementary school. She spoke with the teachers, filled out paperwork, and handled all the admission procedures. The boys chattered excitedly. "Mom, when can we get pizza? I heard the pizza in New York is the best." She stroked their heads. "When Mom has a free day, I'll take you." They cheered, all fatigue forgotten. Seeing their smiles, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. No matter the difficulties, she still had her two sons as her emotional anchor. That evening, she set the table and the three of them sat together. Noah boasted, "Tomorrow I'm going to try to make new friends." Leo nodded. "Me too, but I'm a little worried. I don't know if my accent sounds different." She smiled gently. "Don't worry, just be yourselves. People here are friendly." Unconsciously, she thought of the man who had abandoned her 7 years ago. Where was he? What was he doing after work? She shook her head, dispelling the thought. He had nothing to do with her and her sons anymore. Late at night, after the boys were asleep, she sat at her desk reviewing the collaboration plans. Around 11 p.m., her phone rang. It was an unknown number. She was hesitant, but after a moment she answered. A deep male voice came through. "Elara, it's me." She drew a sharp breath, silent. His voice was thick with emotion. "I know I was wrong. I just wanted to say, for the past 7 years I've—" She cut him off coldly. "It's too late." Then she hung up and turned off her phone. A wave of resentment washed over her. After all these years of her struggling alone, what was the point of his call now? She looked at her sleeping sons and sighed. She would never let them know about that man. The night was heavy. She dreamed of old nightmares of him, smiling coldly and telling her to get rid of it. She woke up with a start, her forehead damp with sweat. Looking at her peacefully sleeping children, she began to cry silently. She wiped her tears, telling herself to be stronger. The pain would never be repeated. She would never give him the chance to hurt her or her children again. In the morning, she forced herself to be cheerful and prepared breakfast for her sons. Seeing their two identical little faces, her heart warmed. Life would go on. She believed that as long as she stayed away from him, everything would be fine. However, fate, it seemed, had other plans. The next morning, at the new branch office, Elara was busy organizing documents related to the joint project. She wanted everything in order to avoid any direct meetings with Damian Blackwood. But fate was cruel. As she arrived at the entrance of her office building, she saw his familiar luxury car parked near the door. She ignored it and hurried inside, hoping not to run into him, but the sound of footsteps behind her made her flinch. "Elara," his low, deep voice called out. She turned, her expression unwavering. "I'm busy." He took another step closer, his tone gentle. "I just want to say a few words. I know you hate me, but please give me a chance to explain." She scoffed. "Is that what you call an explanation? 7 years ago, what was your explanation when you pushed me out of your life and forced me to face every hardship alone?" A look of pain crossed his face, but he persisted. "I was wrong back then, truly wrong. But I never expected you to disappear without a trace, not giving me a chance to make it right." She laughed out loud, a sound filled with mockery. "A chance to make it right. You say it so lightly, as if it were just a careless mistake. Do you have any idea what you did when you told me to get an abortion? You killed my faith in you." Her words were as sharp as a blade, and his face paled. She turned to leave, leaving him standing stunned in the lobby. She didn't want to prolong a meaningless conversation. Just thinking about that rainy night made her tremble with rage. For 7 years, she had built a wall around her heart, and she wouldn't let him break it down so easily. She quickly returned to her desk, burying herself in paperwork. Outside, Damian Blackwood watched her quietly through the glass partition, a look of anguish on his face, but he didn't know what to do. A little after 10 a.m., she was in a meeting with the HR department to handle recruitment. The door to the conference room opened slightly, and an employee informed her, "Miss Vance, President Blackwood would like you to come to his executive office for a discussion." She sighed in frustration. "All right, I'll be right over." It was likely about their joint project. She couldn't refuse. She stood up, grabbed a folder, and headed over. When she pushed the door open, she saw him sitting alone, waiting. 2 cups of steaming coffee sat on the table. He gestured for her to sit. She placed her folder down, sitting at a distance, her voice calm. "What about the project did you want to discuss?" He paused for a moment, then pushed a cup toward her. "Coffee for you." She didn't touch it, just looked straight at him. No need for formalities. He sighed, suppressing his emotions. "I've reviewed the project proposal. There's a section here that requires deeper collaboration. I believe you're aware that we need to launch the joint HR and marketing plan next month." She nodded. "Understood. I'll coordinate with the person in charge and have a report for you by the end of the week." A faint smile touched his lips. "Good. Alara. Thank you." Then his voice softened. "These 7 years. Where did you live?" I looked. "Excuse me, are we done with work?" she interrupted, standing up. He quickly said, "Wait." But she didn't look back, leaving the room swiftly. He followed her into the hallway, only catching a glimpse of her disappearing around a corner. He let out a long sigh, remembering how she used to chirp his name. Now there was only a vast distance between them. After work, she went home to pick up her sons. Noah excitedly shared, "I made friends with some kids from other countries today. We even played soccer." Leo, more reserved, said, "Mom, a kid in my class asked where my dad is." I didn't know what to say. She froze, then smiled and stroked his head. "Just tell them your dad isn't here. That's all." Leo nodded slowly. Looking into his eyes, she knew they were growing up, and questions would arise. But she couldn't give them an answer that included the name Damian Blackwood. The next day, she was busy at the office again. In the middle of the day, she received a call from the school. "Miss Vance, I was hoping you could come in to discuss your son's academic progress." Worried, she quickly asked for leave and rushed over. When she arrived, she learned that Noah had gotten into a fight with another student. She was shocked. Her son was usually so gentle. She saw Noah sitting huddled in front of the principal's office, his face sullen. She asked softly, "What happened, honey?" Noah burst into tears. "He was teasing me. He said I don't have a dad, and I got so mad." Her heart clenched. Seeing her son's tear-streaked, indignant face pained her deeply. She hugged him, her voice gentle. "I know you were hurt, honey, but fighting is wrong. Do you understand?" The little boy sobbed. "But I hate it when they say I don't have a dad." "Why isn't Dad here, Mom?" She didn't know how to answer, only whispering. "You'll understand when you're older." After resolving the matter with the school and apologizing to the other parent, she took Noah home. As they reached the gate, she was surprised to see Damian Blackwood waiting, his gaze fixed on them. She was stunned, tightening her grip on her son's hand. Her voice was cold. "Why are you here?" He looked awkward. "I was just passing by and wanted to see the school." Noticing Noah's tear-stained face, he asked quietly, "Is he all right?" She brushed it off. "It's none of your business." Noah looked up at him curiously. "Mom, who is this man?" She didn't answer, turning away and leaving him standing there like an outsider. He realized with a pang of bitterness that this child was his own flesh and blood, yet had no idea. That night, Alara leaned against her headboard, watching Leo and Noah sleep. Thinking about her son's words, her heart ached. She knew that sooner or later her sons would ask more about their father, but she couldn't let them cling to such a heartless man. She had often wondered if, had he truly repented, she should let him meet them. But the thought was always extinguished by the pain of the past. She wiped a tear, thinking that a mother's love alone was enough to raise her sons. The following days were increasingly busy. The company pushed the project timeline, and she and her team were in a race against time. She and Damian still encountered each other frequently, but their interactions were strictly professional. Whenever he tried to speak to her privately, she always found a way to evade him. Sometimes she would catch him looking at her with an expression of regret, but she couldn't be bothered to care. One afternoon, after a long meeting, she returned wearily to her office. To her surprise, she found a bouquet of simple daisies on her desk with an unsigned card. She opened it. It contained only one word, "Sorry." She held the bouquet, her hand trembling slightly, her mind flashing back to a time long ago when he had knelt beside her. It seemed that once when he was drunk, he had whispered many sweet things, only for it all to shatter afterward. She gritted her teeth and tossed the bouquet into the trash without a second thought, as if throwing away an old memory. That day she returned home late again. The boys were with their nanny, Mrs. Gable. Leo was sitting in the living room with a book. Noah was watching cartoons. As soon as he saw her, Leo ran over. "Mom, I have a homework assignment to draw our family. I'm supposed to draw Dad too, but I've never seen him." His words were like a knife twisting in her heart. She forced a smile. "Just draw me your brother and yourself. As for your dad, you can draw him however you want." The boy's dark, intelligent eyes held a hint of sadness, but he nodded. Later, as she was helping him with his homework, she saw that Leo had faintly drawn a shadowy figure standing far away from the three of them in his picture. She froze, not daring to ask, just patting his shoulder and whispering, "I'm sorry." The boys didn't understand the whole story, but they could sense their mother carried a heavy burden and loved her all the more for it. At the end of the week, the company hosted a gala to introduce the new project. All senior managers were invited, including her, of course. She wore an elegant black dress, her hair in a neat bun with light makeup. The party was held in the grand ballroom of a five-star hotel. As soon as she entered, she saw him. Damian Blackwood was in a dark suit, exuding an air of sophistication. When he saw her, he approached, offering a polite smile. "Miss Vance, you look beautiful tonight." She gave a cold nod and tried to walk past, but he gently took her arm. "Could we take a photo together for the launch event?" She took a deep breath and pulled her arm away. "Don't touch me." The few guests nearby didn't understand what was happening and looked at them curiously. Realizing she shouldn't make a scene, she turned and walked in another direction, trying to maintain her composure. Amidst the laughing and chatting crowd, she moved like a distant shadow. She overheard a few people whispering, "Something seems off between Miss Vance and the president." She ignored them. In the middle of the event, the MC invited the leaders of both companies to the stage for a speech. She stood on the same stage with him. They stood side by side and raised their glasses for a toast. Thunderous applause erupted, and people complimented them on being a handsome pair. She only felt a bitter taste in her mouth while he forced a smile. A slideshow presentation about the project's importance played on the screen behind them. The media took countless photos. To any observer, they seemed like a perfectly coordinated team. No one knew about the deep chasm that lay between them. After the event, she intended to leave early to get back to her sons. When she got to the parking garage, it had started to rain unexpectedly. She didn't have an umbrella and had to stand under the overhang. Suddenly, he appeared holding a black umbrella and slowly approached her. "Let me give you a ride home." She shook her head. "I can get a taxi." He didn't insist, just stood there holding the umbrella. The rain grew heavier, splashing around her heels. His voice was low. "Don't be stubborn. At the very least, we're still partners. I can't let you get soaked." Seeing no point in arguing, she sighed. "Fine." He held the umbrella over both of them as they walked to his car. The rain pattered, and the wind carried a chill. She caught his familiar scent, a subconscious reminder of the past, but she quickly pushed the thought away. Inside the car, he started the engine. Silence enveloped them. He helped her with her seatbelt, his hand briefly brushing her shoulder, making her flinch. She maintained her cold facade, and he said nothing, concentrating on driving down the wet streets. The streetlights cast a hazy glow. After a moment of thought, she said firmly, "I don't want you showing up in front of my children." Understood. His hands tightened on the steering wheel, his lips pressed into a thin line. After a long pause, he replied, I guessed you had twin sons, didn't I?" She was speechless, glaring at him. "You investigated me." He shook his head, his voice sad. "No, I just saw the boys that day. I recognized the resemblance. They look like me. I regret it more than you can imagine." She gritted her teeth. "What good is regret? You think a few apologies can fix everything. Do you have any idea what I went through for the past 7 years?" Her eyes welled up, but she fought back the tears. He spoke softly. "I don't expect to erase my past mistakes. I just hope to make it up to them now. I want to fulfill my responsibilities as a father." She laughed bitterly, a tear finally escaping. "Responsibilities. Back then, you told me to get an abortion. Now you talk about responsibility. How ridiculous." The car stopped in front of her apartment building. She opened the door. The rain was still drizzling. He called out Elara. She turned her eyes cold. "Forget about my sons. They don't need you. Don't disrupt our lives." Then she ran into the rain, leaving him sitting silently in the car, his hands clenched on the steering wheel. Outside, the thunder rumbled, a reminder of the wrongs he had committed that couldn't be washed away by a few late apologies. She rushed up to her apartment, afraid she was late and the kids were already asleep. As she opened the door, Leo ran out. "Mom, you're all wet. Where were you for so long?" She took off her shoes and forced a smile. "I was busy with work." "Are you two in bed yet?" Noah peeked out. "Not yet. We were waiting for you." Looking at their innocent faces, she knew she had to be stronger, not waver because of Damian Blackwood. She changed, took a warm shower, and then tucked her sons into bed. The three of them snuggled, chatting and laughing for a bit before drifting off to sleep. But she tossed and turned, her mind filled with worry. He wouldn't give up easily, especially now that he knew about the boys. She bit her lip, thinking that no matter what, he couldn't interfere in their lives. The wounds of 7 years had not yet healed, and she wouldn't let her children be hurt by their selfish father. Would he try to fight for custody or play some other trick to force her hand? The thought made her shudder. In the middle of the night, she woke up and looked at her 2 sons, sleeping beside her, their faces so peaceful. She gently stroked Leo's soft hair, then Noah's, and whispered to herself, "I only have you, and you only have me. We'll always be together. No one can take you away from me." In that moment, she pushed aside all fear, leaving only the fierce maternal love that had sustained her for 7 years. Whatever tomorrow brought, she would do everything in her power to protect her small family. In the days following the gala, Alara threw herself into managing the new branch. Her life revolved around projects, marketing plans, and rushing home to care for her 2 boys. She took them to school in the morning, picked them up in the evening, helped them with homework, and talked with them. She was determined to be both a great mother and a successful manager, burying herself in work primarily to avoid Damian Blackwood. Yet, whether by chance or design, they continued to cross paths. Each time she skillfully maintained her distance. He, in turn, didn't dare to be too forward given her clear rejection. But even as she tried to ignore him, she noticed his eyes were always on her. Sometimes she'd catch him looking at her with a gaze full of regret and longing, and her heart would ache with a familiar pang of bitterness. She couldn't forget what he had done, and she certainly couldn't forgive him for a few late apologies. One afternoon after work, Alara received a call from the boys' homeroom teacher. Her voice was concerned. "Miss, Vance Leo has been doing well academically, but he seems more withdrawn lately, and Noah has had a few angry outbursts where he won't listen. I'm worried they might be under some kind of stress." Alara's heart sank. She knew they were growing up and becoming more aware of the absence of a father figure. After thanking the teacher, she hung up her heart heavy. That evening, as the 3 of them were having dinner, she asked gently, "Are you 2 having fun at school? Is there anything you want to talk to Mom about?" Noah shook his head, his eyes a little red. "My friends keep asking where my dad is. I keep telling them, but they still tease me. It makes me so mad." Leo was silent for a moment then, said quietly, "Mom, I just don't want you to be sad. I know I shouldn't ask about Dad, but I'm curious too." She choked back her emotions, forcing her voice to stay calm. "I understand. I'll find a way to make sure no one teases you anymore. As for your father, trust me, I'll explain when the time is right." She cleared the table and washed the dishes to hide her sorrow. She once thought that if she loved her children with all her heart, they wouldn't miss their father. But life was complicated, and sooner or later they would feel the void. Should she give Damian a chance to meet them at least so they would know what their father looked like? But then she remembered him forcing her to have an abortion, and the pain resurfaced. She couldn't let that man hurt them. The next morning, she drove the boys to school as usual. As she pulled up to the gate, she was startled to see the familiar luxury car of Blackwood Enterprises parked nearby. The driver opened the door, and out stepped Damian Blackwood. He looked at her, his expression a mixture of apprehension and concern. Leo and Noah also sensed something was off and stared at him blankly. She forced a smile and pulled her son's hands. "Hurry inside or you'll be late." Leo said goodbye and let his brother in, but not without a curious glance at the man. Only after the boys were gone did she turn to Damian, her voice cold. "Why are you here? I told you not to show up in front of my sons." He took a deep breath and replied softly, "I just wanted to see them." "Leo and Noah, right, I swear I won't do anything to harm them." She glared at him. "Still denying it, I know you secretly had someone investigate me, and now you're here lurking. Do you think this is helping get lost, or I'll call security?" He fell silent, his face a mask of resignation. He sighed. "All right, I'll go. But I'm not giving up. They're my sons, too." She clenched her fists, her heart aching as if pierced by needles. But she only scoffed. "It's too late. Don't pretend to be righteous. I won't grant you any rights to these children." Then she turned sharply, got in her car, and sped away, leaving him standing alone in the schoolyard filled with the cheerful laughter of children. That afternoon, Alara's boss, Mr. Harrison, flew in from the LA headquarters for a surprise meeting. He announced that the company wanted to accelerate the partnership, and if successful, they would launch an even larger-scale project. This meant she would have to work even more closely with Blackwood Enterprises, making it impossible to avoid Damian. Mr. Harrison beamed. "Vance, you're doing an excellent job. This is your chance for a major promotion. Once this deal is finalized, you'll be moved up. She forced a smile. She wanted the career advancement, but having to constantly interact with that man was agonizing. Still, she nodded. Yes, sir. I'll do my best. After the meeting, she sat alone in her office organizing a stack of documents. This would undoubtedly mean more private meetings with Damien. She felt disheartened but told herself she had to endure it for her career. The more successful she became, the better life she could provide for her sons. The next day, she arrived at the Blackwood Enterprises building for a scheduled discussion. The large conference room was filled with about 10 people. Damien presided at the head of the table, and she sat opposite him. He began by presenting an overview of the plan, then invited her to present the HR and marketing portion. She stood up, delivering a professional, logical presentation. The room applauded, and even he gave a slight nod of approval. When the meeting ended, most of the colleagues left. She was gathering her materials when she noticed he was still sitting there, lost in thought. In the quiet room, he spoke up. "Elara, could you stay for a moment? It's just about work." She considered it. It was probably unavoidable. She gave a curt nod. He poured her a glass of water, his tone serious. "I think we should break down the project into smaller tasks. You handle personnel training and I'll handle external relations and implementation to speed things up. What do you think?" She thought it over and nodded in agreement. A small smile touched his lips as he looked up at her. This time his gaze wasn't cold but held a clear sense of respect. His voice softened. "Thank you for cooperating." She wanted to leave immediately, but he placed his hand on a folder, his voice low. "I also wanted to talk about something personal. Don't worry, I'm not forcing you to forgive me. I just hope you'll let me make it up to the boys. Don't stop me. I won't try to take them from you, and I won't scare them. Please trust me this once." Her heart trembled, but she immediately pushed the feeling away. "I will never trust you again. You treated our child like garbage back then, and now you want to make amends. You think it's that simple?" He bowed his head, his voice filled with remorse. "I know I'm to blame. But I swear if I could do it all over again, I would never have said those cruel words. Please just let me see them once." "Please," pain welled up inside her. She took a deep breath, trying to stay calm, and replied, "No, let's focus on this contract. Don't think about anything else." With that, she stood up abruptly and walked out of the room. He remained seated, his disappointment palpable, but he didn't know what else to do. That night, she got home, helped her sons with their homework, and tucked them into bed. Just as she turned off their bedroom light, her phone vibrated. The screen showed an unknown number. She answered, and a sharp female voice asked, "Is this Elara Vance? I want to meet you." "It's about Damien Blackwood." She was stunned. "Who is this? You don't need to know. But this is important. If you care about your children, meet me at the Crimson Cup Cafe on 28th Lotus Street. Right now." Before she could ask more, the line went dead. Her mind raced with terrible possibilities. "It's about your children." She trembled. It could be a prank, but she couldn't take the risk. She quickly texted Mrs. Gable to watch the boys, then threw on a coat and rushed out to catch a taxi. The cafe was dimly lit and sparsely populated. She spotted a woman in her early 30s with sharp, sophisticated features sitting in a corner. She approached. "Are you the one who called me?" The woman looked up, a smirk on her lips. "Yes. I'm Victoria Davenport." The name made Elara's heart pound. She had heard of Victoria Davenport, Damien's fiancée, from years ago, the reason he had given for forcing her to abandon their child. She held her breath and asked directly, "What do you want?" Victoria laughed dryly. "Sit down. Have a drink. Don't be so tense." Elara sat down reluctantly, clutching her purse. Victoria stirred her coffee, her voice condescending. "I hear you have 2 children with Damien. After he threw you away 7 years ago, you still went ahead and had them. You're quite stubborn." Elara was furious but held her tongue. "What are you talking about? Whether your wedding happened or not has nothing to do with me." Victoria ran a hand through her hair, her lips curling. "The wedding, he called it off right after you disappeared. Not that I cared much, but now he's obsessed with you again, even disrupting my life." "I don't like it." Elara scoffed. "You're worrying for nothing. I'm not letting him back into my life. You should be happy." A dangerous glint appeared in Victoria's eyes. "Don't play dumb. Damien is torn up about those 2 kids. He wants to acknowledge them, doesn't he? If you let him back into your life, I know he won't let go, and that will interfere with my plans." Elara was shocked. So this woman was still trying to pull Damien back to her side. She said calmly, "Your business with him is your own. I'm not letting him acknowledge the children. If you're so scared, do whatever you want, but leave me out of it. Victoria laughed. I want you to know if you continue to be involved with him, I have ways of making you lose everything. Your children won't be safe either. I'll do whatever it takes to stop him from going back to you and those brats. A chill ran down Alara's spine. Victoria stared at her intently. Remember my words. If you're planning on giving him a chance, don't blame me for being ruthless. I have no problem dealing with anyone who gets in my way. Do we understand each other? Alara was trembling with anger but managed to stand up calmly. I have nothing to do with this. Don't try to use my children. If you touch them, I won't spare you. Then she walked out, her heart pounding, a sense of dread washing over her. Victoria's cold demeanor told her this was a real threat. She knew this woman was cunning and would stop at nothing. Her mind was in turmoil. Should she take her sons and leave New York again that night? She had a nightmare that her sons were taken away. She screamed herself hoarse, but no one came to help. She woke up drenched in sweat, only calming down when she saw Leo and Noah sleeping soundly beside her. She sat there, stunned as tears fell. 7 years. She thought the storm had passed, but now upon her return, she was facing a new set of dangers. As much as she hated Damien, she didn't want Victoria to ruin his life, and she was terrified for her children's safety. She just hoped she was strong enough to protect her small family. After meeting Victoria, Alara became even more cautious. She limited where her sons could go and always instructed their teacher to be careful about who picked them up. She even considered changing schools but worried about disrupting their education. At work, she had to continue with the project. Whenever she had to speak with Damien, she maintained a professional demeanor, avoiding all personal topics. He noticed her increased wariness but didn't dare to ask, only remaining silent and sad. One afternoon, she left work early, deciding to pick up the boys herself so they wouldn't have to wait. She parked in front of the school, her heart pounding with an unusual anxiety. It was only 4 p.m. and students were pouring out. She scanned the area but couldn't see Leo and Noah. Usually they waited by the big oak tree, but today the spot was empty. She ran to the security guard. "Sir, have you seen a pair of twin boys?" The guard scratched his head. "School's out. Most of the kids are gone. Maybe yours left earlier." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "No, they don't know how to get home by themselves." "Did anyone pick them up?" The security guard checked his logbook. "Ah, yes. A man who looked familiar said he was a family member and picked them up about 10 minutes ago." She felt the world spin. She frantically tried calling the phone she'd given the boys, but there was no answer. Her legs went weak, her mind a chaotic mess. Could Victoria have done this, or was it Damien? She immediately called him, nearly screaming into the phone. "Damien, did you pick up my sons?" On the other end, he sounded alarmed. "What are you talking about? I'm in a board meeting." "I didn't pick them up." A cold dread washed over her, her voice breaking. "If it wasn't you, then who was it? Oh my God, where are my children?" There was a moment of silence on his end, then he spoke with calm determination. "Where are you? I'm coming." She sobbed, stammering, "I'm at the school gate." "Wait for me," he said. "Don't do anything reckless." After hanging up, she buried her face in her hands and wept. For 7 years, she had feared this day. Her children were missing. They could have been kidnapped or fallen into anyone's hands. She hated herself for not getting there sooner. Just then, her phone pinged. She opened it to read an anonymous text message. "If you want your sons back, come to the abandoned warehouse district near the old shipyard. Come alone. Don't call the police." She read it, her heart twisting in agony, tears streaming down her face. Someone had indeed taken them. Just then, Damien's car screeched to a halt. He jumped out and ran to her. "Any leads?" She showed him the text message. As he read it, his face hardened. He grabbed her hand. "Let's go. I'll get them back." She wiped her tears and pulled away. "They said I have to go alone." He shook his head. "It's too dangerous for you to go alone. At least let me come with you. I won't let anything happen to you or the boys." She thought of Victoria, fearing she was the kidnapper. Amidst the chaos and fear, she nodded. "All right. But don't do anything rash. I just want my sons back safely." He nodded, pulled her into the car, and sped off into the bustling traffic. She clutched her seatbelt, her heart in a vice, tears still occasionally falling. She just wanted to hold her sons in her arms. Whoever was behind this, she was ready to trade everything to save them. Just an hour ago, her sons were laughing and playing. Now they were gone. She heard his reassuring voice. "Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to them. I promise." His promise echoed in the crisis. She didn't know whether to believe him, but she desperately hoped he could keep it. As dusk fell, the road to the old shipyard became deserted. The car sped down the empty road, lit by a few dim streetlights. She looked around, her fear mounting. 7 years ago, she had lost sleep worrying about her sons being harmed. Now her worst fears were coming true. Damien saw her trembling and placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice calm and steady. "We'll find them." She held back her tears, took a deep breath, and regained some composure. "When we get there, I'll ask what they want. You act according to the situation." He nodded, his eyes focused on the road, his expression determined. The cold wind whipped past, and the sky was dark and ominous. The car stopped in front of a dirt lot, leading to the old warehouses. In the distance, darkness shrouded everything, and she could only vaguely make out the silhouettes of the abandoned buildings. Her heart was pounding. She started to get out of the car and run toward them. He grabbed her wrist, his voice firm. "We can't be reckless. Let me stay by your side." She bit her lip and nodded. They walked silently across the gravel-strewn yard, each footstep echoing in the quiet night. When they reached the rusted iron gate, she called out, her voice trembling, "I'm here. Let my sons go." The response was a terrifying silence. Suddenly, a woman's mocking laughter echoed from the darkness. "Well, you got here fast. And you brought Damien Blackwood with you. How brave." A figure emerged from the shadows. As she got a closer look, she recognized Victoria Davenport's face. She was stunned. "It really is you." Victoria smiled, narrowing her eyes. "Surprised I told you I wouldn't let you off easy. Where are the two brats? You don't need to know. It all depends on your attitude." And his. Alara was furious. "What do you want, money, or are you trying to blackmail him into marrying you?" Victoria tossed her hair and laughed bitterly. "I don't need money, and I certainly don't need a wedding. I just need you to get out of his life. Take your brats and go somewhere far away, and don't come back." Damien, who had been standing silently beside her, erupted in anger. "Victoria, let the children go. This is between you and me. Why drag them into it?" She glared at him. "You belong to me. We were supposed to be married. But because she left, you called it off. And now you're trying to go back to her. Don't even dream of it." Alara interrupted. "I have no intention of getting back with him. You know that." "Why did you take my sons?" Victoria's lips thinned, her voice a low growl. "I had to be sure. As long as you're here, he'll never be free of you. You disappear and I'll return the children." Her voice rose, tinged with a hint of madness. The air was thick with tension. Just as Alara was about to scream at her, she heard Noah's faint cries from somewhere nearby. She panicked. "Where are my sons? Let them go. They're innocent." Victoria laughed loudly. "Just sign this agreement to leave New York immediately and never return, and I'll have them released." Damien was furious. "You're insane!" He lunged toward her, but she screamed, "Stay back or you'll regret it." He froze, his heart pounding. She pulled out her phone and sneered. "All it takes is one call, and the person holding the boys will do something unpleasant. Do you want to test me?" Alara was on the verge of collapse, tears streaming down her face. She turned to Damien, her voice choked. "What do we do?" He gritted his teeth, looking at her in agony. She took a deep breath and said decisively, "Fine. I'll sign. Bring my sons out here." Victoria smirked. "Smart girl. Pen and paper are right here." She took the pen with a trembling hand and glanced at Damien. He shook his head. "Don't. I'll find another way." She burst into tears. "My sons are in her hands. I can't risk it. Stop right there." Another voice boomed, accompanied by the bright beam of a flashlight from behind. Everyone turned to see several figures in plain clothes who appeared to be undercover police. "NYPD. Nobody move," one of them shouted, flashing a badge. Victoria was startled and cursed. How did the police get here? Damien was also shocked. Alara didn't know what was happening, only that 2 or 3 officers were rushing in to restrain Victoria. One of them yelled, "Another team, find the kids now." It turned out that from the moment she had called him, Damien had secretly alerted his trusted security team to find leads and contact the police. They had tracked the phone signal, pinpointed the area, and moved in when they were sure. Victoria's phone was knocked from her hand as she struggled frantically. "You can't arrest me. I haven't done anything," an officer barked. "Kidnapping is a serious felony. Tell us where your accomplices are now." She went silent, her face pale with shock. Alara held her breath. "My sons. Where are they?" Another officer ran over, leading 2 small children. She cried out in relief and joy, rushing to embrace them. Leo sobbed, "Mom, I was so scared." Noah whimpered. "They tied my hands." She burst into tears, stroking their hair. "It's okay. Mommy's here. No one's going to hurt you anymore." Damien also rushed over, wrapping his arms around all three of them, his own eyes welling with tears. He whispered, thank God you're safe." The children didn't understand what was happening, only that they were scared and crying. The flashlight beam illuminated Victoria's face. She watched the scene with eyes full of hatred as the police led her away. The cold wind whipped around them, but Alara felt as if she had been brought back to life. She held her sons tight, overwhelmed with emotion. Damien kept a protective arm around the three of them until things seemed to calm down. She knew this nightmare might not be over, but at least her sons were safe. No one said another word. Just knowing the children were rescued was enough for this moment. The wind howled outside the police precinct where the kidnapping case had just been resolved. Alara and her two sons huddled together, still shaken. On a long bench, Leo and Noah sat pressed against their mother, their small hands clutching her arms, refusing to let go. Despite her exhaustion, she calmly held them, gently patting their backs. Damien stood nearby, occasionally glancing at her with a look of guilt. A police officer walked over, handed her some paperwork and said, "You can take the boys home now. But if you can, I'd recommend a medical checkup. They were held for a few hours and are probably traumatized." She nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes, thank you, officers." The officer nodded back. "It was thanks to Mr. Blackwood's timely information that we were able to intervene. Please take good care of the boys." She turned to Damien, her eyes red. "You called the police?" He looked uneasy. "You said you didn't want the police involved, but I couldn't take the risk. I had to have a team on standby in case Victoria had accomplices." She was silent. In that situation, his approach had been the right one. It was because of him that her sons were safe. As they left the station, she carried Noah and held Leo's hand. Damien's car was waiting. He opened the door, his voice low. "Can I take you all to the hospital for a checkup?" She hesitated for a moment, but seeing how tired her sons were, she nodded. In the car, Leo snuggled into his mother's arms and whispered, "Mom, who is that man? Why did he save us?" The boy had always called him that man, unaware he was his father. Before she could answer, Damien spoke gently from the driver's seat. "I'm a friend of your mom's. When I saw you were in danger, I couldn't just stand by." Noah mumbled, "Thank you, sir." Damien was silent, turning to look out the car window. She caught a glimpse of his shoulders trembling slightly, whether from emotion or exhaustion, she couldn't tell. As for her, she was filled with a complex mix of emotions, gratitude for him, saving her sons, but still unable to forget the pain he had caused. At the hospital, a doctor did a preliminary check and concluded that the boys had no serious injuries, just psychological shock. She felt a wave of relief and held her son's hands. "I'll take you home to rest." The boys nodded, pressing close to her. Damien watched them, his heart filled with sorrow. After the quick checkup, she led the boys out into the hallway and was surprised to see him still waiting. He didn't say anything, just handed her a business card. "If there are any problems, just call me." She took the card, hesitated for a moment, then nodded, not wanting to be too cold in this situation. The three of them returned home close to midnight. Mrs. Gable was there to help, and the boys were comforted and tucked into bed. Leo and Noah fell asleep quickly, their arms still wrapped around each other. She took a quick shower and stood on the balcony, her mind blank. Looking out at the dark night, she relived the terrifying moments of the afternoon. If it hadn't been for Damien, she didn't dare to think what might have happened. This incident had also made her realize how dangerous her enemies were. Was Victoria acting alone, or did she have accomplices? The police had arrested her, but was there anyone else? The next morning, she let the boys stay home from school. They were still traumatized. She drove to the office to request a few days off and deal with related paperwork. The management was understanding and granted her leave. As she was finishing up, she received a call from the police asking her to come in to give a supplementary statement. She rushed over, worried about what else Victoria might have said. When she arrived, she saw Damien was also there. He nodded, greeting his voice low. "The police want us to corroborate our stories." She swallowed hard and followed him into the room. The officer in charge opened a file and announced, "The suspect, Victoria Davenport, has admitted to hiring someone to kidnap the two children. Her motive was to pressure Miss Vance into leaving New York so she could force Mr. Blackwood to get back with her. She has also named a few accomplices. We are currently investigating further." Hearing this, Alara shuddered. Damien clenched his fists, his eyes burning with rage. The police asked for a few more details. She recounted the entire incident, not leaving anything out. He added his part about arranging for the police to be on standby. When they were done, the officer smiled faintly. It seems you two rescued the boys just in time. I hope there won't be any more incidents like this. She clasped her hands together and whispered, "Thank you." As they left the precinct, they walked in silence. At the entrance, she looked at him, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for helping me and my sons. If it weren't for you." He looked at her, his face pained. "I just wanted the boys to be safe. I haven't done nearly enough. You don't have to thank me. From now on, I want to make it up to you and them." The mention of making it up made her heart ache, but she didn't react as harshly as before. She just said quietly, "Let's just let things settle down first. This whole ordeal has been exhausting. I don't want my sons to go through any more turmoil." With that, she turned and left. He watched her go, wanting to reach out, but in the end, he let his hand fall. It was true. She and the boys needed peace. And he had to pay the price for his past mistakes. Even though his heart burned with the desire to be a father, he didn't dare to ask for it immediately. 3 days later, the situation had stabilized. Victoria was in custody, and her accomplices were being identified. Alara kept Leo and Noah at home, even hiring a temporary bodyguard. The boys were still anxious and often had nightmares. Sometimes, Noah would bury his face in his mother's lap and sob, "Mommy, I'm scared." Leo wasn't much better, often silent and withdrawn. It broke her heart, and all she could do was hold them and comfort them. During this time, Damien often texted to ask how they were doing. She didn't reply, but she found herself not feeling as angry as before. After all, he had truly helped her save her sons. She wasn't ready to let him see the boys yet, but she noticed his persistence. He always left gentle, caring messages. The conflict within her grew. The hatred of 7 years couldn't be erased so easily, but the image of a father her sons longed for couldn't be ignored either. One evening, after the boys were asleep, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. She opened it to find Damien holding a box of mild sedatives for children and a few toys. She was momentarily stunned and about to refuse, but he gave a forced smile. "I just wanted to drop off a small gift. I won't come in. I don't want to startle the boys." She paused, realizing he had a point. "All right. Thank you," she said curtly, taking the items from him. He looked at her, his gaze softening. "Take good care of them. If you need anything, just call." She was silent for a few seconds, then gave a slight nod. He turned and walked down the hallway, a solitary figure. Watching him go, she sighed and went back inside. She placed the medicine on the table and looked at the 2 toys he had brought, 2 adorable teddy bears. She held them, a strange feeling in her heart. The next morning, Leo and Noah were thrilled with the new teddy bears. But the older boy, Leo, asked, "Who bought these, Mom?" She hesitated, then lied. "A friend of mine sent them for you." He tilted his head, a mischievous look in his eyes. "A boyfriend," she blushed. "Don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and eat your breakfast." Noah giggled and didn't ask any more questions, but their brighter smiles for the first time in days eased her heart. She gradually arranged for the boys to return to school. On the first day back, she took them right to the classroom door and spoke with the teacher, asking her to be extra careful. The teacher was understanding and promised to pay special attention. Though still a bit hesitant, Leo and Noah understood that skipping school wasn't a solution. She watched them take off their shoes, change into their indoor ones, and walk into the classroom, her heart filled with a mix of emotions, hoping for peace. She decided to finish work early to pick them up herself. As she was driving, she received a text message, "I'm free today. Can I pick up the boys? I'll just watch from a distance to make sure no one else takes them. If you're not okay with it, I won't." Her heart skipped a beat. His offer made her hesitate. Since the incident with Victoria, she had lost faith in their safety. His suggestion seemed like a good idea, but she didn't know how to react. She quickly typed, "I'll pick them up myself." After sending the message, she continued driving. She didn't get a reply. When she got to the school, she quickly found her sons. Seeing they were okay, she breathed a sigh of relief. As she was leading them out of the gate, she glanced over and was surprised to see his familiar car parked at a distance. He was sitting inside and didn't get out. Only after she and the boys were safely out of the gate did his car quietly drive away. She stood there for a moment, a complex feeling washing over her. He wasn't infringing on her parental rights. He was just quietly watching over them, protecting them. Was he trying to prove his sincerity? The thought made her heart feel heavy. Back home that night, after the boys were asleep, she stood in front of the mirror looking at her haggard face. 7 years ago, she had left New York with 2 lives inside her, rejected by their father. 7 years later, she returned, was nearly harmed, and their father had risked his life to save them. Everything was turned upside down. She didn't know whether to resent him or be grateful. All she knew was that she was tired and wanted peace for her children. A few days later, work gradually got back on track. Her colleagues praised her for handling everything so well despite the shock. The partnership between Blackwood Enterprises and her branch was going smoothly, promising great benefits. The CEO was even considering her for a promotion. She threw herself into preparing reports and meeting with partners. Whenever she had to meet with Damien, she maintained a professional distance, not too harsh, but not friendly either. He respected her boundaries and didn't bring up family matters. On Friday, a vice president at Blackwood Enterprises suggested a social gathering for the management of both companies, including Alara. Initially, she wasn't keen on going, but her boss wanted her to attend to strengthen relationships. So that evening, she had Mrs. Gable watch the boys and went to the upscale restaurant for the dinner. Everyone was raising their glasses and laughing. She made polite conversation, trying to put her worries aside. But throughout the evening, she could feel Damien's gaze on her as if he wanted to protect her. Around 9 p.m., she excused herself to leave early. As she stepped out into the lobby, she realized it was raining. She stood there waiting for a taxi, but it was difficult to find one in this secluded area. As she was getting anxious, he suddenly appeared, holding an umbrella. "Let me take you home." She shook her head. "I can manage." He gave a small, bitter smile. "I'm just offering you a ride, nothing more. If you get sick, your sons will be sad, won't they?" His words touched on her concern for her sons, and she fell silent. He quietly held the umbrella over her, led her through the rain, and opened the car door for her. The ride was silent. Occasionally, he would sneak a glance at her, seeing her staring blankly out the window. Finally, the car stopped in front of her apartment. She unbuckled her seatbelt and mumbled, "Thank you." He nodded, about to say something, but stopped himself. After a moment, he said softly, "Good night, Alara." She got out of the car and walked quickly into the lobby. As the elevator doors closed, she felt her heart beating unusually fast. She told herself not to be weak. This was all for her sons. Upstairs, she found the boys already asleep and kissed them gently on their foreheads, whispering, "Mommy loves you." Outside the window, the rain continued to fall, a reminder of the tears she had shed 7 years ago. Now all she wanted was for the storm to pass, so she and her sons could live in peace. As for Damien Blackwood, was he truly trying to atone for his past? She couldn't answer that yet. Only time and the trials to come would tell. 3 weeks had passed since Victoria Davenport's terrifying kidnapping attempt. On the surface, things had returned to a semblance of peace, but for Alara Vance, the storm inside her had yet to calm. She continued her routine of taking Leo and Noah to and from school now, always accompanied by a private security guard. The boys were slowly recovering psychologically, though they still had occasional nightmares. The memory of her sons trembling in the hands of a criminal fueled her hatred for anyone who dared to harm them. As for Damien Blackwood, he no longer tried to approach the children openly. Instead, he would quietly follow the security detail or discreetly offer support to her at work. Unless it was a scheduled meeting about their joint project, she hardly saw him. Since the day he brought the teddy bears and medicine, she had silently acknowledged his gestures of concern but maintained her distance. She owed him for saving her sons, but the resentment from 7 years of suffering couldn't vanish overnight. One afternoon, as she was preparing to leave the office, her boss assigned her to a 2-day business conference in a neighboring city. She had to arrange for Mrs. Gable to look after the boys. That evening, while packing her suitcase, she received a call from her adoptive parents in Los Angeles. Her adoptive father's health was failing, and they hoped she could visit soon. She was torn. Her new job in New York was demanding, and she couldn't just leave. She pushed her personal family matters aside, promising to make arrangements as soon as possible. The next morning, she flew to the conference. That afternoon, after finishing her presentation, she returned to her hotel room to rest. She was standing by the window, watching the traffic below her, thoughts drifting to her sons, when there was a knock at the door. She opened it and was shocked to see Damien Blackwood. He was dressed in a sharp suit, his expression serious. "What are you doing here?" she asked, frowning. He held up an invitation. "I was invited as a keynote speaker for the main panel. I didn't expect to see you here. Can we talk for a minute?" She hesitated, but, thinking it might be about work, she nodded and stepped back to let him in. He closed the door quietly. His voice sounded a bit weary. You came alone. I was worried. Are you doing okay? And the boys? She sat down, replying softly. I'm fine. The boys are back in school. The conversation was brief, but his eyes held an unspoken weight. Suddenly, his phone rang. He answered, and his face immediately changed, his voice filled with disbelief. What did you say? How could this have happened? He paused, then gritted his teeth. All right, I'm on my way back. She watched him, her curiosity piqued. He hung up and turned to her, his expression grim. Alara, I have to go back to New York right away. There's an urgent matter concerning Victoria. She was startled. Isn't she in custody? He nodded, walking to the desk. Today was her preliminary hearing. My lawyer just informed me that Victoria is claiming to be pregnant. With my child. His voice trembled with anger. She's using the pregnancy to apply for bail or a reduced sentence. Alara took a deep breath, a wave of unease washing over her. The baby. Is it really yours? He gave a bitter laugh. I haven't had any kind of relationship with her since that disastrous engagement years ago. I'm sure she's lying, but if this isn't handled properly, she'll use this fake pregnancy to evade justice. He grabbed his suitcase and said hastily, I have to go. Be careful. With that, he rushed out of the room, leaving her stunned and unsure how to react. Back in New York, he would undoubtedly face a new storm. If Victoria was really playing the pregnancy card, she must have an even darker plan in motion. Where would this all lead? 2 days later, Alara finished the conference and took a late flight back to New York. As soon as she landed, she received a text from an unknown number. If you don't want Damian Blackwood forced into a fake marriage, meet me. The message included the address of The Gilded Lily, a notoriously shady bar. Her heart pounded. As much as she resented him, she couldn't just ignore this. She made sure Leo and Noah were safe at home with Mrs. Gable, then changed and took a taxi to the bar. Inside, the music was deafening, the lights dim. The sender of the message was standing at the corner of the bar. It was the private lawyer Damian had mentioned, Mr. Jensen. When he saw her, he gestured for her to sit down. She was cautious. Mr. Jensen. Why did you ask me to come here, Mr. Jensen handed her a file. Miss Davenport is insisting she's carrying Damian Blackwood's child. The court has postponed its decision, pending evidence. The Blackwood family patriarchs have heard the news and are putting immense pressure on Damian to take responsibility. He's been in turmoil for days. He's even considering a temporary engagement to her so she won't escape her sentence. He's doing it all because he's afraid she'll try to harm you and the boys again. Alara was stunned, her hands trembling. Why? Why would he do that? It's obvious the child isn't his. Mr. Jensen sighed. Because she threatened him. If he publicly denies it, she'll hire someone to retaliate against your family. Damian feels he's already wronged you so much that he's willing to take the fall just to keep Victoria from touching your children. Hearing this, Alara was both shocked and pained. She couldn't believe Damian would accept being tied to such a vicious person to protect her and her sons. She clutched the file. What do you want me to do? Mr. Jensen leaned in and whispered, Victoria could technically take a DNA test to verify the pregnancy, but she's avoiding it. I suspect she's looking for a legal loophole. If you have any evidence, or can help Mr. Blackwood find a way to counterattack, we might be able to turn this around. But we have to act fast before the Blackwood family forces him into a marriage. He paused, looking at her. Please think about it. Damian is risking everything to protect you and your sons. She stood up, her mind in a whirlwind. She left the bar, breathing in the cold night air. Why would he choose such an extreme path? There was no way she wanted him to marry Victoria to protect her. If he married her and she got out of jail, who knew what chaos she would cause, but what could she do? Just as she was about to hail a taxi, she saw his car parked across the street. He got out holding an umbrella and walked over to her. What are you doing here? She suppressed her turmoil and asked, Are you really going to marry Victoria? Are you insane? Hearing her question, he looked startled and flustered. Then he lowered his voice. Jensen told you, yes. You're temporarily engaged to her. Don't worry, I haven't signed any marriage license. It's just to get her to leave you and the boys alone. She was furious. Why would you do something so stupid? You think forcing yourself to marry someone you don't love will make her back off. He gently held the umbrella over her head as a light drizzle began to fall. The streetlights reflected on his face, showing a look of resignation. I'm not afraid of sacrificing my reputation. I'm just afraid she'll try something with you and the kids again. I was wrong 7 years ago. Now I have to bear the consequences. Just ignore me. She trembled anger mixing with a strange sense of sorrow. Ignore you. If you marry her, she'll have even more power to act recklessly. You think she'll just stop? He was silent, his hand tightening on the umbrella. After a moment, he gave a sad smile. I just hope she'll leave the kids alone for now. As for the future, I'll find a way out. And even if I get stuck, I won't regret it. He opened the car door. Get in. I'll take you home. She sat in the passenger seat, her heart in turmoil. On the way, she asked, her voice choked, Have you tried to get a DNA test for the baby? He nodded. Victoria keeps avoiding it, making one excuse after another. The Blackwood family elders don't believe me either. They prioritize the family's honor and are pushing me to take responsibility until the child is born. His voice was strained. I'm being cornered. Her heart ached hearing this. Wasn't he being pressured by his own family again? Years ago, his family had forced him into an engagement which led to him hurting her. Now, a similar scenario was playing out. Seeing him drive, she knew he was exhausted. A feeling of compassion she couldn't deny rose within her. When they reached her building, she didn't get out right away. She said softly, Pull over. Come up for a minute. I need to talk to you. He looked at her, surprised. She was firm. I don't want you to sacrifice yourself for us again. He slowly nodded, turned off the engine, and followed her up to the apartment. It was late, and Mrs. Gable and the boys were asleep. Alara led him to the balcony. Her voice was hoarse. Tell me your plan. Don't hide it anymore. If you insist on this engagement, I'm afraid she'll immediately accuse you of something else, like sexual assault, to control you further. Then the wedding will be forced. He sighed, resting his hands on the railing. I was planning to convince my parents to support me, then find a way to force Victoria to take a DNA test, but it will take time. In the meantime, she's out on bail and could harm our children. I have no other choice. She took a deep breath. What about me? Did you ever think that I could help you? My sons and I are not helpless. I have a way. Victoria harmed my children, and I want her to pay the price. Instead of you taking this on alone, let's work together to expose her. Her eyes flashed with determination. He turned to her, his own eyes alight with a spark of hope. What do you mean? She bit her lip and said slowly, She's hiding behind the Blackwood family's name. If we force her to take a DNA test now, she won't be able to refuse. But we need proof that she's been seeing another man. We have to find a lead. She looked at him, her voice steely. I don't want you to walk into a hellish marriage because of me. You don't deserve that. He was silent for a few seconds, then gently took her hand. Thank you. But finding proof won't be easy. Victoria is cunning. She'll have covered her tracks. She pulled her hand away and gave a dry laugh. She can't cover everything. She's deceived many people. There must be a loose end somewhere. Trust me. I'm willing to take the risk to expose her. It's also to protect my sons. As she said this, her heart burned. The memory of 7 years ago resurfaced. She had been all alone then. Now she wouldn't make the same mistake and let her sons live under a constant threat. He pressed his lips together, moved. Alara, I'm sorry for everything. I'll be indebted to you for the rest of my life. She turned away to avoid his emotional gaze, her voice low. We'll see who's indebted to whom. Then she gently pushed him away. You should go now. We'll meet with Mr. Jensen tomorrow to make a plan. He nodded and backed away. At the door, he turned and looked at her with gentle eyes. Thank you for not abandoning me. She just stood there silently, her heart beating erratically. After he left, she collapsed onto the sofa, a wave of emotions washing over her. Was she slowly forgiving him, or was she just worried about her sons and the threat that woman posed? Whatever the case, she knew that letting him marry Victoria would only make things worse. She couldn't let that happen. The next day, they met with Mr. Jensen and agreed on a plan to expose Victoria with proof of her infidelity, or at least prove the child wasn't Damien's. Alara remembered that when Victoria was first arrested, a strange man had shown up at the police station demanding her release. That could be a lead. She suggested they track him down. Mr. Jensen agreed. Good idea. I'll have someone look into it. Meanwhile, the Blackwood family sent a letter demanding Damien return to their family estate to resolve the marriage issue. There were even rumors of an official engagement ceremony being planned. Alara was afraid that before their plan could be executed, he would be forced to go. Despite her resentment, she couldn't deny the pang in her heart at the thought of him being pushed around by his family again. If only she had been stronger back then, maybe things would have been different. Now she was determined not to let this man be buried in a dirty scheme. In the middle of the night, while she was making soup for Noah, who had a cold, she received a call from a blocked number. She answered, and a strange man's hesitant voice came through. "Is this Alara Vance? I have information about Victoria Davenport. She hired me for some dirty work but never paid me. I'm willing to sell you the information for some cash." Her heart pounded. She replied immediately, "How much do you want? As long as the information is useful, I can pay." The man laughed. "I just need enough to leave the country. Meet me at the West Side Bus Depot parking lot 10 a.m. tomorrow." She hung up, her heart racing with excitement. If this man could provide proof, they could expose Victoria. After putting Noah to bed, she informed Damien and Mr. Jensen. They arranged for a safe meeting. Since devising their counterattack, she felt like she was heading into a battle, but for her sons, she was willing to do anything. The next morning, at exactly 10 a.m., she drove to the deserted bus depot. Mr. Jensen and an assistant were hiding nearby just in case. She stood leaning against her car. A few minutes later, a thin man in a baseball cap appeared. He looked around, then approached her. "Miss Vance, I'm Vince. You have the money." She took out the prepared cash and said quickly, "I just need proof that Victoria isn't pregnant with Damien's child or that she has another lover." He smirked, took out a phone and opened a photo album. It was a series of pictures of Victoria going in and out of a hotel with a foreign man looking very intimate. There was even a picture of her kissing him. "This is her lover," he said. "Probably the father of the baby." These were taken 4 months ago before she was arrested. She was overjoyed. "This is more than enough. Thank you. Send me all the photos." He handed her the phone and she plugged in a USB drive to copy the files. Just as she was about to hand over the money, a car suddenly screeched toward them. The window rolled down and 2 men with bats jumped out. "You traitor," one of them yelled. "You dare to sell out Miss Davenport." The man, Vince, panicked and ran. The 2 thugs chased after him. One of them swung a bat at her. Luckily, Mr. Jensen and his assistant rushed out from their hiding spot to intervene. She stumbled to the side, dialing Damien's number, her heart pounding. She clutched the USB drive tightly. The 2 thugs turned on Mr. Jensen's group. The sound of fighting echoed in the empty lot. A few seconds later, Damien, who had been waiting nearby, arrived. He jumped out of his car and landed a powerful punch, knocking one of the thugs down. The other one, seeing this, grabbed his bat and ran. Alara coughed, holding her bruised arm. Damien rushed to her side. "Are you okay?" She shook her head, her hand still clutching the USB drive. He looked at her, his eyes full of worry, then turned to the legal team who were tying up the remaining thug. "Hand him over to the police." Vince had escaped, but she had gotten the evidence. Despite the bruises they had, what they needed to expose Victoria. He took her hand, his voice thick with emotion. "You were so reckless." "Why did you risk yourself like this?" she replied. "If I didn't, you would have continued to be pushed around by her." Then she gave a small smile. "I don't want you to marry that horrible woman. And my sons certainly don't want her as a stepmother." Her words, half joking, half serious, warmed his heart. He squeezed her hand, gently filled with gratitude. That evening, Alara sat at her laptop reviewing the photos. Each one clearly showed Victoria being intimate with the strange foreign man. If they presented this in court and to the Blackwood family, she wouldn't be able to lie about the baby being Damien's. She was about to text him when he called. He had already received a copy from Mr. Jensen. He was preparing to print the photos and documents and was ready to hold a press conference if necessary. "Victoria can't escape this time," he said. He paused, his voice softening. "Thank you. Your arm. Is it okay?" She looked at the bruise. "Just a scratch." "It's fine." His voice was low. "I'm going to announce everything tomorrow. The Blackwood family is also waiting. Hopefully no one will try to force me to acknowledge a child with her anymore." She managed a small laugh, but her eyes stung. "Yeah, I hope so." His voice was warm. "Good night. I owe you a promise to thank you properly later." Before she could reply, he hung up. She stared at the screen, her heart filled with emotion. This ordeal was almost over, which meant he wouldn't have to go through with the engagement. She should be happy. So why was her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and trepidation? Was her old love for him resurfacing? She was afraid of being hurt by him again. She lay on the sofa, her mind racing. 7 years ago, his cruel words, "Get rid of it," had driven her to despair. 7 years later, he had risked everything, accepting a fake engagement to protect her and her sons. The 2 conflicting images swirled in her head. She didn't know whether to hate him or pity him anymore. She decided to wait until after Victoria was exposed the next day to figure it out. The next morning, the New York sky was unusually clear, as if heralding a new turning point. At exactly 9 a.m., Mr. Jensen convened a small press conference at the Blackwood Enterprises headquarters, inviting a few reputable journalists. A representative from the Blackwood family was also present. Alara stood at the back next to Mr. Jensen and a few colleagues, her heart pounding with anticipation. If everything went according to plan, Damien would announce the evidence and end Victoria's charade. On the stage, Damien appeared dressed in a black suit, his handsome face tense. He bowed his head and began, "I, Damien Blackwood, would like to address the rumors that I am being forced into a marriage with Miss Victoria Davenport because she is pregnant. This is completely false." A murmur went through the room, cameras flashing. He continued calmly, "We have collected evidence confirming that Miss Davenport has been in a relationship with another man. Based on the timeline and photos, we can definitively state that the child cannot be mine. All files and investigation results will be provided to the press." The reporters clamored with questions. "Are you 100% sure? What if she denies it?" He gave a wry smile. "We are ready for an immediate DNA test if she dares to cooperate. But from what I know, she is currently a fugitive, unwilling to face the evidence." Another reporter shouted, "The Blackwood family previously pressured you to take responsibility. What do they say now?" From the audience, the Blackwood family representative stood up and spoke concisely. "We have reviewed the evidence. If Miss Davenport cannot prove the child is my nephew's, we withdraw all demands and will file a lawsuit against her for fraud." The whispers grew louder. Everyone was talking about the woman's scheme. In that moment, Damien's reputation was cleared. He concluded the press conference with a simple statement, "I hope justice will soon be served." He bowed and left the stage. Alara watched him from the back, a mix of joy and emotion welling up inside her. Had he finally escaped this ordeal? Soon after, Mr. Jensen approached her. "It went well. The Blackwood family has withdrawn their demands. Victoria is now wanted for fleeing custody. This is the end for her." She nodded, relieved. At least this time she couldn't easily harm her or her sons again. But she wouldn't let her guard down while she was still at large. That afternoon, she went home and cooked a delicious meal for her sons. Leo asked Mom, "Why are you so happy today?" She smiled and pinched his cheek. "Because I solved a difficult problem at work. We can relax a little now." The boys cheered and asked to watch a movie that night. She laughed and agreed temporarily, setting aside her worries. But just as she finished clearing the dishes, the doorbell rang. She opened it to find Damien standing there holding a box of pastries, his face bright. "I wanted to treat you and the boys to dinner, but I guess you already cooked. This is a small token of my thanks." He held out the box. Leo and Noah peeked out from behind her, curious. She nodded slightly, letting him in. The boys clamored, "What kind of pastries did you bring? Let us see." He sat down and ruffled their hair. "Cream puffs. Do you want to try some?" They cheered, their shyness forgotten. She stood nearby, a flicker of emotion in her heart as she watched him interact so naturally with the children. It looked like a cozy family scene. She quickly pushed the thought away. The boys happily ate their pastries, chattering about how delicious they were. He watched them quietly, smiling occasionally. She was clearing the cups when she asked softly, "The Blackwood family. They're not pressuring you anymore," he nodded. "It's over. They're also grateful to you. Without the evidence, I would have been trapped." His gaze was tender. "I owe you again." She shook her head. "Let's call it even. You saved my sons and I helped you expose Victoria. We're done." She turned to the boys. "After you finish, go to your room. Don't be too loud." Leo blinked at him. "Can you stay and play with us for a bit? I want to show you my drawings." Noah chimed in. "Yeah, look at my pictures." He looked at her, a questioning look in his eyes. She couldn't bring herself to refuse and said, "All right, just for a little while." For the next half hour, the boys excitedly showed him their drawings, chattering and running around. She watched from a corner as he listened intently to them. She was deeply moved. Her sons craved a father figure, and now they had a taste of that warmth. But she had to be careful not to let them get hurt again. At 8:30, she reminded the boys it was time for their bath. He, realizing it was late, stood up to leave. Before he left, he said, "If you need anything, don't hesitate to ask." She mumbled a quiet okay, looking down, her heart beating a little faster. That night, she lay in bed, unable to sleep. The image of him playing with her sons kept replaying in her mind. She was confused. She had hated him, sworn never to let him into her and her son's world, but he kept showing up, protecting and caring for them. Unconsciously, the defensive wall around her heart was beginning to crack. She was afraid of a moment of weakness, of repeating the tragedy if he were to turn his back on her again. The next day at the office, she was immersed in a new project. After stabilizing her department, she went to her boss's office to discuss her progress. Mr. Harrison looked at her thoughtfully and said, "Alara, you've done an excellent job these past few months. The company is considering promoting you to Regional Project Director for Asia." She was stunned, a mix of joy and pride swelling within her. "Mr. Harrison continued, but this position will require you to travel frequently to Singapore, Hong Kong, and sometimes Europe. I want you to think it over before accepting." Alara thought of her adoptive parents waiting for her in Los Angeles, her 2 sons, and New York with all its memories. She was hesitant and didn't give an immediate answer, only thanking him and promising a decision soon. Leaving his office, she felt like she was at a major crossroads. A higher position meant sacrificing more time with her sons. And just as she had vanquished the ghost of Victoria, was she going to leave her sons again? She returned to her desk and her phone rang. It was Damien. "Are you busy? My parents are flying in and want to meet you and the boys." She was shocked. "Meet me why?" he sighed softly. "They probably want to apologize and express their desire to meet their grandchildren. They know I was wrong in the past, and they regret it. Are you willing?" She was silent, her heart in turmoil. The Blackwood family, a family she never wanted to be involved with, now regretted their actions and wanted to meet their grandchildren. Her heart softened. Leo and Noah had paternal grandparents. But would it be that simple? That afternoon, lost in thought, she decided to meet him at a cafe near the office to talk. He was already there when she arrived, politely pulling out a chair for her. She got straight to the point. "I won't stop the grandparents from meeting their grandchildren, but it has to be done slowly to avoid shocking the boys." He nodded. "Of course. My parents just want to see them and atone for my mistakes." He gave a sad smile. "For years, they pressured me into engagements and deals, but when they learned the truth, they felt terrible about their grandchildren. They're arriving next week." She took a deep breath, a vague sense of anxiety creeping in. He looked at her intently. "Alara, what are your plans for the future? I heard your boss wants to promote you. Are you going to leave?" She was surprised. "How did you know?" He smiled faintly. "It's the talk of the industry. You're a rising star. It's not a secret." Then he became serious. "If you leave, what about Leo and Noah?" She was flustered. "I haven't decided. I could take them with me." A look of disappointment crossed his face. "So I won't get to see them anymore." She was silent. The question pierced her heart. She wanted to say it was none of his business, but seeing his pained expression, she softened. She pursed her lips. "I'm not sure if I'm going. My sons need stability too." He leaned forward, his voice gentle. "I understand." He wasn't pressuring her to stay, just respecting her decision. Her heart fluttered again. They were connected by their 2 sons, and a past filled with pain and resentment. How could she ever make a clean break? That night she received a video call from her adoptive parents in Los Angeles. Her adoptive father was coughing, but he forced a smile. "Honey, I'm okay. Don't worry. Just come visit when you're done with work." Her eyes welled up. "Okay, Dad. I miss you both." After hanging up, she buried her face in her hands. Should she go back to Los Angeles, be close to her adoptive parents, and take the high-ranking position? But what about Leo and Noah, who were just getting used to their school and the presence of their biological father? Should she cut ties and leave? The thought of her sons losing the chance to be close to their father made her ache. Plus, he was hoping she would give him a chance to mend things. She remembered how he had stood up to Victoria, willing to sacrifice his reputation. She couldn't deny that he had changed. She looked in the mirror and whispered, "I have to make a decision. I can't stay in limbo forever." The next morning, she took Leo and Noah to a water park. She wanted them to have a day of pure fun. They splashed around, their laughter echoing. As she sat on a bench, she saw a familiar figure approaching. It was Damien. He was holding towels for the boys, gently drying them off. "Are you having fun?" Leo nodded obediently. "Yes, sir." Noah grinned. "Come swim with us." She looked at him. "What are you doing here?" He put his hands in his pockets and smiled. "I heard from a colleague you were taking the boys to the water park. I wanted to join in the fun." She blushed and looked away. "Fine, do what you want." So for the rest of the day, he helped her watch the boys. It was clear they enjoyed having him there. At the end of the day, Leo timidly asked, "Mom, can we invite him to have lunch with us?" His eyes were sparkling, and she found it hard to refuse. "All right, you can ask him." So they all had lunch at a small restaurant in the park. Leo and Noah chattered about school and friends. He listened attentively, occasionally offering words of encouragement. She watched them, and for a moment it felt like a perfect family picture. Her hand trembled slightly under the table. This feeling of warmth was something she hadn't experienced in 7 years. Was she opening her heart to him? After lunch, Noah said bluntly, "Mr. Blackwood, my brother and I want you to be our dad." The innocent words made both her and Damien freeze. Her heart skipped a beat. A sad look crossed his eyes before he stroked Noah's head, his voice strained. I'm not worthy, but if your mom allows it, I'll try my best." The boy cheered Mommy. She was flustered, her face turning red, unsure of what to say. Damien laughed to break the tension. "Let's talk about it later. You two be good now." On the way home, the boys dozed off in the back seat, exhausted from playing. She sat in the front, looking in the rearview mirror at her two sons, sleeping, her heart in a turmoil. He drove slowly and said softly, "You see, they want a father. I know you still resent me, and I won't push you. But I hope you understand that I love them very much." He paused, his gaze deep. "And I still love you." She was startled and looked down to hide her tear-filled eyes. A few minutes later, she replied softly, "I'm not sure if I can forgive everything, but if you're patient, maybe there's a chance." Just those words made a small smile appear on his lips. He gripped the steering wheel tightly as if afraid of losing this glimmer of hope. The sunset painted the sky in shades of red, casting a warm glow into the car, as if melting away all the old hatred. In the days following the water park trip, Alara Vance's life settled into a stable rhythm. She remained immersed in project planning, mulling over the promotion at her company. Damien Blackwood, respecting her space, didn't appear as frequently. He would occasionally send a text asking about Leo and Noah, with simple messages like, "Are the boys? Well, I'm in meetings, but thinking of them," or "Let me know if anything comes up." Each time she read them, a flicker of emotion stirred within her, but she maintained a measured distance, never replying or initiating contact. Then one afternoon, as she prepared to leave the office, she received a call from her boss informing her that Damien's parents representing the Blackwood family wished to meet her in person at the company headquarters. The news was both surprising and nerve-wracking. Damien had mentioned they would be visiting, but she hadn't expected them to approach her at work. Nevertheless, she didn't refuse. She tidied her desk and waited calmly. An hour later, the elderly couple appeared in the lobby, accompanied by Damien. The woman, though in her middle age, exuded an air of elegance, her face kinder than Alara had imagined. The man wore a distinguished suit, his temples graying. They walked beside their son, their expressions serious yet tinged with a hint of friendliness. Alara took a deep breath, stood, and bowed her head slightly. "Good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood. I'm Alara Vance. Mrs. Blackwood." Damien's mother offered a gentle smile. "Hello, dear. I hear you're the mother of 2 boys, Leo and Noah, is that correct?" Her voice was filled with emotion. Alara nodded softly. "Yes, that's right. Mr. Blackwood interjected, his voice warmer and deeper. "We've come to apologize to you. In the past, the Blackwood family put a certain amount of pressure on Damien, leading to his regrettable actions. Now that we know we have 2 grandsons, we are very eager to meet them." Alara was at a loss for words, but Damien stepped in. "My parents wanted to come here to show their sincerity. Alara, would you be willing to arrange a meeting for them with the boys?" He looked at her with expectant eyes. She was silent for a few seconds, then a faint smile touched her lips. "Of course. But I'll need to prepare the children mentally. They've never met their paternal grandparents and might be shy. I'd like the meeting to feel natural." "Mrs. Blackwood nodded immediately. "Absolutely. You choose the time and place that's most convenient for you. We won't rush things. We just hope to see our grandsons soon." Sensing their sincerity, Alara felt more at ease. "Very well. I'll let you know soon." Her words were a tacit agreement to open the door to their family. She glanced at Damien and saw a flicker of joy in his eyes. Following that meeting, she arranged for the 2 families to have dinner at a quiet restaurant over the weekend. She carefully prepared Leo and Noah. "Today, you're going to meet your grandparents from your dad's side. Don't be scared. If you feel awkward, just look at me." The boy's eyes widened. "Really, Mom, our grandparents?" Noah's eyes were round with wonder, and Leo looked at her with eager anticipation. She smiled. "Yes, I think they'll be very nice. Let's give it a try. At the appointed time, she held her son's hands and walked into the private dining room. Damien and his parents were already there. Upon seeing the children, Mrs. Blackwood stood up, her eyes welling with tears. Leo, Noah. She stared at their faces, then turned to Alara, her voice choked. They look just like Damien when he was a boy. Oh dear, I feel so guilty for not being there for them for a single moment. Seeing her grandmother crying, Noah hid behind his mother, whispering, Mom, why is Grandma crying? Alara lovingly stroked his hair. Because she's so happy to meet you. They're tears of joy. Hearing this, Noah nodded, cautiously stepped out and said politely, Hello, Grandma. Mrs. Blackwood smiled and stroked his head. Leo also bowed his head to Mr. Blackwood, his voice clear. Hello, Grandpa. Mr. Blackwood nodded gently. You're both very well-behaved boys. Grandpa is very happy to meet you. Alara stood by, observing a strange feeling in her heart. She had worried the reunion would be awkward, but the children were naturally friendly, and the grandparents were sincere. The family sat down and ordered. Mrs. Blackwood constantly served food to the boys, asking them questions and praising them. Leo ate slowly, occasionally murmuring, Thank you, Grandma. Noah chattered animatedly about his class. The atmosphere was unusually warm. Damien sat beside her, sometimes giving her a look of gratitude. She responded with a faint smile. It seemed not all nightmares lasted forever. Perhaps today was the first truly happy day the entire family had spent together. In the middle of the meal, Mr. Blackwood turned to her seriously. Alara, I know you've had a difficult 7 years. The Blackwood family owes you an apology. We hope that from now on you'll consider us family. If you have any difficulties, please let us know. Mrs. Blackwood nodded in agreement. That's right. If you need financial support for the boys' education or anything at all, we're here to help. Alara quickly shook her head. Thank you, but I'm perfectly capable of providing for my sons. If you wish, you can visit them from time to time. Your emotional support is all I need. I don't need any money. Mrs. Blackwood smiled warmly. That's good too. The important thing is that we all care for Leo and Noah. I think they'll be happy to have grandparents. Noah looked up. Yes, I'd like that. His cheerful exclamation made the whole table laugh. She gently tweaked his nose. You can't just ask for things. You have to be good to get them. The boys giggled. Seeing this, Damien was overwhelmed with emotion. His hand instinctively moved closer to hers under the table and brushed against it. She flinched and pulled back, giving him a warning look. He just smiled and didn't press further. At the end of the meal, the boys reluctantly said goodbye to their grandparents. Mr. Blackwood said gently, we're heading back home next week. I hope we'll see you two again soon, or perhaps you can come visit us. And Alara, I hope you'll consider our offer for you to move with Damien so the family can be reunited. She was momentarily stunned. Before she could reply, he patted his son's shoulder. The rest is up to you. With that, he and Mrs. Blackwood left, avoiding any awkwardness. The room fell silent. She watched them leave, then turned to see Damien still quiet. He said softly, I haven't decided to move back. For now, I want to stay in New York to make things up to you and the boys. We still have a lot to sort out. She nodded and led Leo and Noah to the car. The boys chattered. Grandma and Grandpa are nice, Mom. I want to see them again. She looked at Damien. He understood and knelt down to stroke their hair. Of course. They'll be back soon, or I'll take you to visit them if your mom agrees. She remained silent, her emotions in a tangle. On the ride home, the car was quiet. The boys dozed off, and she and Damien exchanged occasional glances in the rearview mirror. That night, after the kids were asleep, she remembered Mr. Blackwood's words, hoping she would move with Damien. What would that future look like? She had her own promotion to think about, which would require travel. Would she agree to move, or would Damien settle in New York permanently? She picked up her phone instinctively, scrolling to his name, wanting to ask, but not daring to text. In the end, she chose silence, waiting for him to take the lead. 2 days later, her boss called her into his office again, urging her for a decision about the regional project director position. The company was expanding into the European market, which would require even more travel. This is an opportunity you should seriously consider, her boss encouraged. She nodded, promising an answer in 2 days. That afternoon, she received an invitation to a networking event hosted by Blackwood Enterprises Management. It was a farewell party for Damien's parents and a thank you to their partners. Alara was hesitant. Should she go? After considering her career and the importance of maintaining good relations, she agreed. That evening, she had the nanny stay with the boys, gave careful instructions, and slipped into a sleek black dress for the party. The ballroom was bathed in a warm golden light filled with elegantly dressed guests. As she entered, heads turned to admire her refined beauty. In the center of the room, a dapper Damien in a gray suit was entertaining his parents. Upon seeing her, he quickly walked over, a smile on his face. "You came." She nodded slightly, a little self-conscious under the gazes of the crowd. He led her to meet some of the board members who greeted her warmly. Then Mr. and Mrs. Blackwood approached, taking her hand. "It's so good to see you again." She smiled in return. They were even warmer than at the restaurant. Mrs. Blackwood even gave her a light kiss on the cheek, which made her blush. The party officially began. Damien gave a short speech thanking his parents for their visit and affirming the long-term business partnerships. The fake engagement, of course, was not mentioned as Victoria's lies had been exposed. After a round of applause, he invited everyone to raise their glasses. She politely took a sip of her wine. Mrs. Blackwood came over and linked arms with her. "Dear, I'm going back home soon, and it might be a while before I return. I hope you'll think about our offer to move, or at least give Damien time to make it up to you." She squeezed her hand earnestly. "You two are still in love, aren't you?" Alara blushed and stammered, I don't know." The older woman smiled kindly. "Figure out what you're afraid of and work through it together. Don't let the children suffer." Alara frowned, a myriad of emotions swirling within her. She still hadn't decided whether to give him an official chance or keep things safe as they were. When Mrs. Blackwood let go of her arm, she saw Damien standing at a distance, looking at her with gentle eyes. She quickly looked away. As the party wound down, guests began to leave. She was about to go as well, but Mr. Blackwood stopped her. "Could we have a word?" Damien took his mother back to the hotel while his father stayed behind. She nodded and followed him to a garden on the side of the ballroom. Under the garden lights, he began to speak slowly. "When I was younger, I forced Damien into an engagement with Victoria for business reasons. I never imagined it would lead him to make a mistake that hurt you so deeply. Now I understand that imposing my will on my children was wrong. But Damien was also a victim of the family's expectations, he's always lived under pressure. I'm so glad you gave birth to 2 healthy boys. Otherwise, I would have regretted it for the rest of my life." She pursed her lips. "I don't blame you. It's been 7 years. It's all in the past, Mr. Blackwood continued. "I just hope you understand Damien's heart. He may have been wrong, but now he sincerely wants to make amends. If you can open your heart, please give him a chance, and give your 2 sons a family with both a mother and a father." He paused, looking at her sincerely. "I'm not forcing you. I respect your decision." Though unspoken, she felt a wave of emotion. This elder was surprisingly understanding, not at all overbearing. She nodded slightly. "Yes, I'll think about it." He patted her shoulder and smiled warmly. "Thank you." Then he bid her farewell and left. She stood there watching him go. Just then, Damien returned to find her standing there lost in thought. He approached her. "What's wrong? What did my father say to you?" She smiled faintly. "He advised me to give you a chance." He froze, his heart pounding. "And what do you think?" She looked up at the night sky, her voice low. "I know the boys need you. As for me, I'm still struggling with the past. But maybe I'll try to look forward instead of living in the past." He was stunned for a moment, then suddenly took her hand. "Thank you for saying that." She was startled, but for the first time didn't pull away. She let her hand rest in his, feeling the warmth of his touch against the cool night air. After a brief moment, she regained her composure and pulled her hand away. "It's late. I'm going home. You should get some rest too." "Let me take you home," he offered. She shook her head. "No need. You're probably busy seeing your parents off. I can get home myself." He started to protest, but she had already turned and walked away quickly. Though her heart was fluttering, she wasn't ready to fully accept him just yet. They needed more time to heal the past. Late that night, she returned home to find the boys asleep. Standing in front of the mirror, she touched her cheek, remembering the feel of his hand in hers. It seemed the resentment was fading, replaced by a tentative affection. But deep wounds don't heal overnight. She still had her career to consider. If she took the promotion, she would be traveling constantly. She had to make a final decision, stay in New York or take the leap. Moreover, she still didn't know if the feelings between her and Damien could truly endure after a 7-year storm. She looked at her sleeping sons, then thought of him. Sometimes you have to take a step forward to find happiness. But what if she stepped wrong and had to endure the pain all over again, and her sons would be caught in the crossfire? She shook her head, trying to clear the conflicting emotions, and decided to give herself a few days to think everything through. For the next week, Alara threw herself into her work, trying to forget the emotional turmoil. She set her alarm early, got Leo and Noah ready, and then rushed to the office. In the afternoon, she would pick them up, and at night she would prepare documents. Her boss was waiting for her decision on the promotion. The deadline was just a few days away. To go or not to go, if she went, she would be constantly traveling. What would happen to her sons? Her heart began to lean towards staying in New York. The boys were slowly bonding with their father, and she didn't have the heart to take that away from them. But her career ambitions were important too. She often chided herself, was she sacrificing her opportunities for her children? But then the image of Leo and Noah chattering happily whenever Damien visited would soften her resolve. She truly wasn't ready for a whirlwind career abroad that would leave her sons without the love of a family. One evening after picking up the boys, she sat with them on the sofa and asked casually, "If Mom has to travel far for work in the future, would you two be scared?" Noah pouted. "I just want you and Dad to be here with me. I don't want you to go anywhere." Leo, more thoughtful, sighed. "Mom, I'm older now. I understand you have to work, but I like having both you and Dad in New York." Hearing her son's words, her heart ached. They were using the word dad so naturally. In their minds, Damien had already taken that place, even if it wasn't official. She gently stroked their hair. "I'll think about it." The next morning, while checking her emails, her phone rang. It was a woman's voice introducing herself as a marketing VP from the Singapore office, someone she knew. "I hear you're up for a promotion," she said. "We're all looking forward to having you back here. The CEO has already arranged an office for you." Alara froze. "An office? In Singapore?" The woman laughed. "That's right. You'll probably be able to come over in 2 weeks. Hope to see you soon." Then she hung up. Alara slumped in her chair, her heart heavy. It felt like everything was pushing her to leave New York. At lunch, Damien stopped by her office and invited her out. She accepted, wanting to talk to him. They sat at a nearby Japanese restaurant. As they ate, he asked, "You seem preoccupied. Is something wrong at work?" She took a deep breath. "Actually, my boss wants me to move to Singapore. Everything's already been arranged. I still haven't given a final answer." He put down his chopsticks, his expression changing. After a moment, his voice was low. "If you want to advance your career, I won't stop you. I just ask that you don't leave New York without telling me. Don't take the boys and disappear again." His voice held a hint of desperation. Her heart ached. She remembered how she had left without a word 7 years ago, and how he had lost all trace of her and her sons. She shook her head. "I'm not planning on running away. I'm just not sure how the boys would adapt." He gently took her hand across the table. "Give me a chance to take care of them. Wherever you go, I'll arrange to go with you. Or I'll stay here and look after them. As long as they don't have to be without a mother or a father." She was startled and pulled her hand back. "Are you saying you'd quit your job at Blackwood Enterprises? Or follow me around everywhere?" He gave a sad smile. "If necessary, I can manage the company remotely or appoint a vice president and become a consultant. Since I found my sons, my priority is my family." She was stunned by his determination. He was willing to sacrifice his power all to make it up to her and his sons. A warm feeling spread through her chest, but she was still hesitant. "Don't make a rash decision. Who knows what will happen in the future?" He was silent for a few seconds, then said, "Seriously, I can't promise to be perfect, but this time I won't back down. Don't carry everything on your own. Just trust me." She choked up, remembering how she had knelt and begged him to keep the baby 7 years ago, only to be met with cruel words. Now he was offering to raise their sons with her to cross any distance. Time had changed them both so much. She gave a slight nod. "Let me think about it." She stood up. "You can pay for lunch. I'm heading back." He smiled quietly. Her evasion was still there, but he saw a glimmer of hope. At least she wasn't pushing him away like before. That evening she came home to find a note from Mrs. Gable Miss. Vance, Leo, and Noah asked to have a sleepover at a friend's house. She was surprised. It turned out the boys had been invited to a classmate's birthday party and sleepover. Seeing how excited they were, she agreed after carefully calling the other parents to confirm. It was the first time her sons weren't sleeping at home, and the apartment felt strangely empty. Around 8 p.m., she was sitting on the sofa, realizing she had a free evening. She gave a sad smile. She was used to the noise. Just then, the doorbell rang. She opened it to find Damien standing there holding a bouquet of daisies, a hopeful look on his face. She was surprised and stammered, "Why? Why are you here?" He looked a little awkward. "I knew the boys were at a friend's house and you were home alone. I wanted to ask you to go for a walk." She glanced at the flowers. "Where did you learn to be so romantic?" He gave a sheepish smile. "I'm trying to make it up to you. You can say no." She looked at the simple white and blue daisies, which reminded her of the first time he had ever given her flowers. She bit her lip and finally nodded. "All right. Let me change." A few minutes later, they were walking along the riverbank. The night breeze was gentle. He slowed his pace to match hers. She asked unexpectedly, "Do you remember? Our first date was a walk like this, but it was raining, and I got soaked." He smiled. "Yeah. I didn't have an umbrella and let you get wet, and I even got mad at you." A flicker of regret crossed his eyes. She laughed. "It's in the past. It's not raining tonight. Let's just enjoy the walk." They strolled talking about everything and nothing. As they sat on a park bench, she asked carefully, "Are you really willing to leave Blackwood Enterprises if I have to move?" He turned to her, his eyes resolute. "I'm not lying. Since our sons were born, I've already lost 7 years with them. I don't want to repeat that mistake. Wherever you go, I will follow at least until they're grown." Her heart pounded and she looked up at the sky, her emotions overwhelming her. He had changed so much. He moved closer and gently took her hand. "Alara, can you forgive me?" His words were direct and unwavering. She was silent for a few seconds, then pulled her hand back, her voice soft. "I can't promise, but I'll try. I'm just still scared. Scared that one day you'll abandon us again." He took her shoulders and turned her to face him, his eyes sincere. "I won't. I paid too high a price for my mistake back then. You can watch me. If I ever do it again, you can just disappear. I'll have no right to look for you." She looked down, a tear rolling down her cheek. Perhaps she had been longing for this moment, for her wounds to be soothed. Years ago, she had given birth in bitterness and struggled to survive. Now he was willing to trade everything for her. What reason did she have to refuse? She gave a slight nod, a silent acceptance. A radiant smile spread across his face, and he pulled her into a brief hug. She didn't push him away, her heart pounding like a drum. In that moment, she realized she had been waiting for this for a long time. But she still said, "Things are still up in the air. I'm not accepting a proposal or anything. Let's just take it slow." He nodded. "I know. As long as you give me a chance to be with you and our sons." She blushed and stood up quickly. "Let's go home. It's late." He smiled and followed, holding onto the bouquet of daisies she was carrying. On the way back, they talked about work. He promised to support her if she wanted to arrange a travel schedule. She was still undecided. When they reached her building, he stopped the car. As she was about to get out, he leaned over and gave her a light kiss on the cheek. She gasped, blushing. "We're in front of my building." He blushed too and mumbled, "I just wanted to make sure this wasn't a dream." She turned away quickly and got out of the car, her heart racing. As the door closed, he sat inside, smiling as he watched her disappear into the elevator. From that day on, their relationship took a small step forward. Damien often visited, sometimes to play with Leo and Noah, sometimes to help her cook. The boys were happy to see their parents talking and laughing together, no longer cold and distant. They even started asking, "Dad, can you sleep over tonight?" which made her both embarrassed and amused. Of course, she didn't let him stay over yet. She was still afraid of moving too fast. He didn't rush her, just waited patiently for her to be comfortable. Finally, the deadline for her decision arrived. That morning, she stood in front of the mirror, deep in thought. The internal battle was coming to an end. A bright future awaited her. But she wondered, did she want a life of constant travel, or did she want to build a home for her sons with him? Which choice was right? She remembered her son's words, "I just want you and Dad." She thought of Damien's determination of a future with her family. She knew what she truly wanted. She took a deep breath and called her boss. "I'm sorry, but I can't accept the position of regional director for Asia. I want to stay in New York." Her boss was a little surprised, but respected her decision. After the call, she felt a sense of relief. She had no regrets. She believed there would be other opportunities for success, and she didn't have to sacrifice her family for them. As she was getting ready for work, Damien texted, "I'm waiting for you and the boys at Celestial Garden Restaurant tonight. I have a surprise. I hope you can make it. She was curious, but agreed. He probably didn't know she had just turned down the promotion. She would tell him later. That evening, she and the boys arrived at Celestial Garden. A waiter led them to a cozy private room decorated with fresh flowers. Damien was there to greet them, dressed in a handsome suit, a smile on his face. Welcome. The boys ran to him. Dad, why is it so fancy tonight? He was mysterious. Because tonight I have something special for your mother. She was suspicious. What was he up to now? He just smiled and invited them to sit. The dinner was unusually romantic. The boys were curious but well-behaved, occasionally showing off to their father. I got a good grade on my test. Damien would tell them stories about his company, and they would listen with admiration. She sat and listened, a smile on her face. After dinner, he signaled to the waiter, who brought in a cake with the word family written on it. She was moved to see a drawing of 4 people, her, him, Leo, and Noah. In the candlelight, he suddenly turned to her and took her hand. Alara, thank you for giving me a chance. I want to officially ask you to be my other half, to raise our 2 sons with me for the rest of our lives. Are you willing to move forward and leave the old pain behind? She blushed and took a deep breath. Noah shouted, Mommy, say yes. Leo also cheered. Mom, agree. The 2 boys jumped up and down. She looked at them, then at him, her heart racing. She gave a slight nod. The boys clapped and cheered. He leaned down and kissed her on the forehead, whispering, Thank you. She smiled through her tears, a smile of pure happiness. The past had been a thorny path, but finally she was ready to trust again. Though no official procedures had been completed, they both understood this was a promise of commitment. The boys hugged their parents, their laughter echoing. Today, she had turned down an opportunity to travel the world and stayed in New York. And she had just agreed to build a future with him. Though there was a tinge of regret for her career, she believed this path to happiness was worth the trade-off. He leaned close to her ear, his voice trembling slightly. I promise to protect you and our sons. I will never lose this family again. She felt the warmth of his embrace, and a sense of peace washed over her. The flickering candles illuminated a simple scene. 4 people gathered around a small table, laughing happily. Outside, the lights of New York shimmered, a witness to their new beginning. From that evening at Celestial Garden, Alara decided to give Damien a real chance. Though her heart still held moments of unease, she told herself that once she had made a choice, she had to learn to trust. As for Damien, after she nodded in agreement, his joy was boundless. He became even more attentive to her and the boys. He would often drop by in the morning to drive her to work and the boys to school, and in the evening he would try to pick them up and cook dinner together. This simple family life, woven into the fast pace of the city, made her feel warmer than ever before. One morning she was in the car with him, the 2 boys chattering in the back seat. Noah suddenly piped up, Dad, are you and Mom getting married? My friend said if you have a mom and dad, they have to get married. Alara was startled and turned to look at her son, her face flushing. Damien laughed, catching her eye in the rearview mirror. Silly boy, Mom and I are planning on it, but we have to see if Mom agrees. She feigned sternness. Focus on driving. Don't teach the kids nonsense. The 2 children giggled, and he gently pressed the accelerator, his face beaming. Since she had agreed to take another step forward, his desire to officially marry her and build a complete home was no secret. But she had said she needed time to prepare, and he respected that, not wanting to pressure her. That day, after dropping off the kids, he drove straight to her office. She unbuckled her seatbelt and smiled. Thanks. I worked late last night. Good thing you came early, or I would have been late. He rested his hand on the steering wheel, his voice warm. Alara, I have a board meeting all day. Don't worry if I can't pick you up. She nodded. It's fine, I can get home myself. See you later. Before she could open the door, he leaned over and gave her a light kiss on the cheek. She blushed. We're in front of my office, he grinned. So what? Have a good day at work. She huffed softly, got out of the car, and suppressed a happy smile. During the day, she was busy discussing a new project. Around noon, she went to the cafeteria for a quick bite, and was surprised by a video call from her adoptive parents in Los Angeles. When she answered, she saw her adoptive father's face looked more haggard than before, and he was coughing constantly. Her adoptive mother said quietly, Your father needs a second heart surgery. The doctor said it has to be done as soon as possible. Her face went pale. Why so suddenly? Why didn't you tell me sooner? Her adoptive mother sighed. We didn't want to worry you, but we can't delay it any longer. If you can, you should try to come over to help. We also want to see Leo and Noah. She choked back tears. Yes, of course. I'll try my best. Don't worry, I'll fly over as soon as I can arrange things. After hanging up, she sat there in a daze. These were the people who had saved her and supported her for 7 years. Now they were in crisis. How could she ignore them? But she had her life here. Her job and her relationship with Damien was just starting to blossom. If she took the boys to Los Angeles for a while, what would he think? Would he be willing to go with her? In the afternoon, she tried calling him, but he didn't answer. He was likely still in the long board meeting, so she sat with her worries, her mind in a tangle. By evening, she still hadn't reached him. He sent a single text. "I'll be home late. You and the boys eat first." She read the message with a pang of sadness. His company was probably going through a stressful time. With her father's situation, she didn't want to add to his burden. That night, she lay in bed watching her son sleep, her mind racing. "I have to go to Los Angeles for at least 2 or 3 months to take care of Dad. I can't leave the boys here. But if I take them, what about their school, their environment?" She tossed and turned until midnight, then tried calling him again, hoping he was done with work. The phone rang for a long time before he answered, his voice weary. "Alara, I just finished the meeting," she said softly. "Are you very tired? I need to talk to you." He understood. "What is it? Just tell me." She took a deep breath. "My adoptive father needs urgent heart surgery. I want to go back to Los Angeles to take care of him. I'll probably be gone for a few months and I plan to take the boys with me." He was silent for a few seconds, then replied, "I understand. When are you leaving?" She was anxious. "As soon as possible. This weekend at the latest." "I'm afraid there isn't much time." He was decisive. "All right, I'm coming with you. No matter how busy I am, I'll make arrangements. Give me the hospital address and I'll rent an apartment nearby for us." She was surprised. "But your company, your projects, what about them? Won't it be a problem?" He laughed softly. "I have a vice president to manage things. I told you I wouldn't let you be alone. It's time for me to act on that promise." His determined voice made her choke up. He was putting his family before his company. In the past, he had chosen an engagement for his family's name for power. Now he was choosing his family, choosing her. Tears fell from her eyes. "Thank you. I don't know what to say." His voice was gentle. "Don't overthink it. Arrange your work. We'll fly to Los Angeles this weekend." After hanging up, she felt a wave of emotion and apprehension. If he was coming with her, it meant they were truly becoming a family. Her only worry now was whether her father's surgery would be successful. 3 days later, they had booked their flights. Leo and Noah were excited about going to a new place, but sad to leave their friends. She promised they would return to New York after their grandfather was better, and arranged for them to continue their studies online. The night before the flight, Damien came over to help her pack. Seeing the 2 boys chattering, he picked them up one by one and smiled. "Don't worry, you'll still be able to study there. Mom and Dad will be with you." Noah raised his hand. "Don't forget my toys, Dad," Damien nodded. "Of course." She sat in a corner, quietly watching. If someone had told her 7 years ago that this man would one day be such a devoted father, she wouldn't have believed it. But now, he treated the boys with the most sincere love. The next morning, the 4 of them went to the airport. Mrs. Gable took a temporary leave and said goodbye to the boys. Alara's friends also came to see them off, wishing her father a speedy recovery. Damien handled all the check-in procedures. For the first time, she felt what it was like to be cared for. After everything was done, he took the boys' hands and led them through security with her, walking beside him, his expression calm but his eyes warm. The flight was a few hours long. Leo and Noah were excited while she dozed off on his shoulder. When they arrived in Los Angeles, she took everyone straight to the hospital. Walking down the hallway that smelled of antiseptic, she felt her heart pound. Her adoptive father was lying in bed, his face gaunt, but he managed to smile when he saw her and the 2 boys. "My daughter, you're back." He hugged her, then looked at Damien in surprise. She teared up. "This is Leo and Noah's father, the man who will help me take care of you." Her adoptive father laughed. "Good, that's wonderful. I'm so glad you found a responsible man." Damien bowed his head politely. "Hello, sir. I'm Damien Blackwood. I hope you get well soon." The older man nodded and patted his shoulder. "Thank you for helping Alara. Seeing her happy is all I need." After the introductions, Damien stayed to discuss procedures with her adoptive mother and arrange for the apartment rental near the hospital while she went to talk to the doctor about the surgery. The doctor explained that the surgery needed to be performed within a week. The success rate was high, but given her father's age, there were still risks. She left the office feeling tense, clutching the file and praying for her father's safety. When she returned to the room, she saw Leo and Noah happily chatting with their grandfather. She realized that she had never imagined a day when her children would be gathered around their grandfather, even if he was their adoptive one with their biological father. The scene warmed her heart and eased some of her fears. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. She and Damien arranged for a temporary school for the boys and handled all the pre-op procedures for her father. In the evenings, the four of them would return to the rented apartment. During a quiet moment, she stood on the balcony, looking out at the familiar streets of Los Angeles filled with memories. She remembered fleeing here while pregnant, crying through the final months. Now Damien was by her side, mending the old wounds. She turned to find him leaning against the doorway, his gaze deep. "This place must bring back a lot of memories for you." She gave a small, sad smile. "Yes, many of them not so pleasant. But thanks to my adoptive parents, I got through that difficult time." He gently took her hand, his voice filled with guilt. "I'm sorry. If only I had been less stubborn back then." She shook her head. "It's in the past. The present is more important. I just hope my father gets well." He gently wrapped his arm around her shoulders, and she leaned against him, a sense of hope gradually filling her. On the day of the surgery, she was up early, handling paperwork and helping her father change. Damien was by her side, steadying her when she nearly fainted from the stress. Her adoptive mother held her hand, tears in her eyes. Leo and Noah waited patiently outside. As her father was wheeled into the operating room, she stood there, her heart in her throat, her hand clasped in Damien's. He just gently rubbed her back, whispering, "Be calm. Everything will be okay." The 3 hours felt like an eternity. Finally, the doctor came out, a faint smile on his face. The surgery was a success. He's in post-op recovery now. The family can rest assured. She let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding and sank into a chair, tears of relief streaming down her face. Damien knelt in front of her and wiped her tears. "I told you. Fate won't be so cruel to you anymore." Her adoptive mother hugged her overjoyed. The two boys ran over, cheering Grandpa's okay. The whole family was immersed in joy. Damien stood there, wrapping all three of them in a loving embrace. The following weeks were dedicated to her father's recovery. She would cook for him in the morning and clean his room. Damien handled communications with the doctors and helped with transportation. When she was tired, he would tuck her in and get the boys ready for bed. Day after day, she watched him spoon-feed her father or chat with him gently. She realized this man had become the pillar of their family. She found herself thinking that if she were to marry him, it would be a good thing. One afternoon, her father was in a wheelchair in the hospital garden getting some fresh air. Damien was pushing the wheelchair and she was walking beside him. Leo and Noah were running ahead. Her father smiled contentedly. "Seeing these two boys, I feel at ease." "Damien, do you truly love my daughter?" Damien was serious. "I love Alara and the boys more than anything. I made a mistake and now I'm willing to spend the rest of my life making it up to them." Her father smiled and nodded. "Good. Then you should give her a proper wedding. Don't let her be wronged." Hearing this, Alara blushed while Damien's face lit up. "I will, sir. I'm just waiting for Alara to say yes." She scoffed. "Dad, what are you talking about? I'm not so sure." He waved his hand. "I can see it. You don't have to deny it. Plan it soon. I want to attend my daughter's wedding." She was wide-eyed, her heart pounding. She glanced at Damien and saw his unconcealed happiness. A few weeks later, her father's recovery was going well. The day his stitches were removed, he was able to walk with light physical therapy. She told Damien, "I think we should go back to New York soon so the boys can get back to school." He agreed. "I also have some company matters to attend to. As for your father, do you want to stay longer?" She considered it. "My mother can take care of him. I can always fly back if needed. He's doing much better now and told me to go back to New York and focus on my work." Damien smiled faintly. "Then we'll go back and plan the wedding soon and invite your parents to attend." Her face flushed. "Let's take it one step at a time." On the day of their return, they said a tearful goodbye to her adoptive parents. Her father hugged the boys and told them to be good. "Remember to invite me to the wedding." Alara blushed and just bowed her head. Damien happily promised. On the plane, the four of them sat together again. Leo was excited. "I want to see my friends, but I'll miss Grandpa." She stroked his head. "It's just for now. You can still see him on video calls." Damien took her hand and smiled. "Once everything is settled, we'll have the wedding and invite your grandfather, and my parents can be there too. Everyone will be there." She didn't reply, just leaned her head on his shoulder, her heart full of happiness. Back in New York, she was immediately busy with work she had left behind. Her boss was happy to have her back. Though she hadn't taken the regional director position, they offered her the position of domestic director, which still came with significant authority. She was content. She could be with her family and her career wasn't suffering. Damien, on the other hand, was in back-to-back meetings after his long absence. The boys returned to their old school excited to see their friends again. Everything seemed to be back to normal. Within a month, Damien surprised her by quietly purchasing a luxury apartment near the city center. One evening, he took her and the boys to see it. It was spacious, with 3 bedrooms and a balcony overlooking the river. The furniture was already in place. She was wide-eyed. "When did you buy this?" He smiled. "I put down a deposit before we left and waited for you to approve." She looked around, pleased with the warm, cozy design, perfect for a family of 4. Noah ran around shouting, "This room is mine." Leo also chose a room with a large window. She was hesitant. "Why the rush? My old place is fine." He was firm. "That's a rental and it's getting small. The boys are growing. I want a permanent home for our family." Seeing his sincerity, she didn't object. She thought of it as their new home slowly taking shape. The night they moved in, the boys were busy putting up posters and he was helping her organize the closet. It was then that she realized, "Are you planning on living with me now?" He shrugged. "We're getting married." "What's strange about living together?" Her face flushed. "But we haven't even had the ceremony yet," he teased her. "So you want to wait until after the wedding to move in?" She was silent. She actually wanted the family to be together, but was worried about what people would say. Finally, she stammered, "Well, for now you can come and go as you please. I'm not forcing you to move in, as long as the kids are happy." He burst out laughing and nodded. "All right, I respect your wishes." Living under the same roof made Leo and Noah even more lively. Every morning, the 4 of them would have breakfast together, talking about work and school. In the evening, either he or she would pick up the boys and cook dinner. Sometimes he would wrap his arm around her waist and she would just blush but not refuse. The boys would giggle and call them mom and dad like a real family. One night, after putting the boys to bed, he invited her to the balcony to look at the city lights. She rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the warmth of his heartbeat. He suddenly opened a small box. Inside was a sparkling diamond ring. She was startled. "Damien." He took her hand and solemnly placed the ring on her ring finger. "I know you don't like a big fuss, so I didn't want to propose in a grand way. But I want to mark you as my future wife." She stared at the ring, tears welling up in her eyes, a wave of emotion washing over her. "Thank you." Then she smiled. "But I haven't set a date for the wedding yet." He nodded and kissed her gently on the forehead. "Whenever you're ready, I'll prepare everything." She buried her face in his chest, hearing his heart pound. After 7 years of silence and pain, she finally believed that happiness was real. The night breeze blew past, carrying the scent of flowers from the balcony. They stood there in silence, no words needed, just the knowledge that their hearts were beating as one. As the months passed, everyone noticed Alara was more radiant. Her colleagues teased, "Being in love looks good on you." She would just smile, not denying it. Her adoptive mother in Los Angeles called to congratulate her after her recovery. Mrs. Blackwood would occasionally call to ask when the wedding would be, and if she needed any help. Damien would tell her, "Mom, just wait. I'm respecting Alara's timing." One evening, Leo came to his mother hesitantly. "Mom, my brother and I want you and Dad to get married soon. All my friends' parents are married. I want to see you in a beautiful wedding dress." Noah ran over to add, "Yeah, Mom, you'd look so pretty as a bride." She smiled and stroked their heads. "All right, I'll think about it soon." Just then, Damien walked by and heard his son's a happy smile on his face. That night, as they were lying on the sofa watching TV, she asked softly, "What kind of wedding do you want?" He held her close. "Whatever you like. Grand or simple, as long as you're happy." She smiled sweetly. "I don't need anything grand either. Just our grandparents, my adoptive parents, a few close friends. After everything I've been through, I just want it to be warm and intimate." He was overjoyed and kissed her on the hair. "All right, I'll arrange it. Let's do it soon." She snuggled into his chest, embarrassed. "Okay, soon. The kids are waiting." He held her tightly and whispered, "Thank you." She looked up at him, her eyes sparkling. "Don't say thank you anymore. I should be thanking you for coming back. Let's put the past behind us." He nodded, his voice hoarse. "Yes, all of it. From now on, we only move forward." She smiled, tears of joy in her eyes. In that moment, she knew she had truly, completely forgiven him. The 7-year storm had finally passed. Ahead of them was a new journey called family. The wedding day set not long after took place at a luxurious riverside hotel, but the guest list was limited to close family and friends. Alara didn't want a grand affair, so Damien respected her wishes, inviting very few business partners. In the morning, she sat nervously in the makeup room wearing a pristine white wedding dress, her hands trembling slightly as she looked at her reflection. Her adoptive mother, who had flown in, looked at her with joy. "You're so beautiful, my dear. Your father is still recovering and couldn't make it, but he sends his love and wishes you all the happiness in the world." Tears welled in Alara's eyes. "Thank you, Mom." Her mother gently patted her hand. "Don't cry, you'll ruin your makeup. It's time to go to the ceremony." Alara took a deep breath and stepped into the hall. The warm, intimate setting was filled with daisies, the flower he had once given her. At the end of the red carpet, he stood in a handsome black suit, his eyes fixed on her, a happy smile on his face. Beside him, Leo and Noah in tiny suits held hands waiting to walk their mother to their father. As she walked toward him, tears streamed down her face. Leo placed a small bouquet in her hand and whispered, "Mommy, you're so beautiful." Noah jumped up and down. "Hurry up, Dad, I want to take a family picture." The entire hall laughed. When her hand touched his, her heart soared. He said softly, "Thank you for coming to me." She smiled and whispered back, "Thank you too." The ceremony was simple, but meaningful. When the officiant asked Damien if he would love and cherish Alara for the rest of his life, he replied with a strong, "I do." When it was her turn, she looked at him at her two sons and said softly, "I do." Thunderous applause erupted. Mrs. Blackwood wiped away tears, and her adoptive mother was also moved. Noah shouted, "Mommy, kiss Daddy!" Everyone laughed. Alara blushed, and Damien, beaming, leaned down and gave her a sweet kiss. After the ceremony, they took photos. Leo and Noah insisted on standing between their parents. Her adoptive mother stood next to Mrs. Blackwood. The two grandmothers held hands and smiled. "It seems our children have finally become one family." Mr. Blackwood smiled contentedly. "Indeed. The old wounds have finally healed. Now, there is only joy." The party was not long. After the guests had left, Damien took her hand and led her to the riverbank next to the hotel. The sunset painted the water in shimmering shades of red. She leaned against his chest, her wedding dress fluttering in the breeze. He whispered, "My wife. I can finally call you my wife." She chuckled. "My husband. You're so cheesy." Just then, Leo and Noah ran out from the party hall shouting, "Mom, Dad, take a picture with us." The two boys held up a camera trying to frame the shot. Alara laughed and opened her arms to hug them. Damien leaned in, and the four of them formed a perfect picture. Click. The first family photo after the wedding was taken. She looked at it, her heart overflowing with a happiness more complete than anything she had ever known. After the wedding, they settled into their new life. Every morning she woke up in his arms. The boys would sometimes run into their room and jump on the bed to wake them up. Their home was simple but filled with joy. Sometimes she would watch from the kitchen as he laughed and played with the boys. The painful memories of the past seemed to fade away, replaced by faith in the present. As for her career, she continued to excel as the domestic director. Her boss praised her for her energy and results. She was content, able to be with her family without sacrificing her ambitions. One weekend, they took the boys on a camping trip in the mountains. Under the starry sky, the four of them sat around a campfire, roasting marshmallows and singing songs. She instinctively took his hand, the firelight illuminating his warm face. He put his arm around her. "This is like the honeymoon we never had." She nodded. "I never could have imagined this 7 years ago." Their eyes met full of love. The next morning, they woke up early and took the boys to a small hill to watch the sunrise. The cool breeze blew and the boys cheered. "It's so beautiful, Mom and Dad." She leaned on his shoulder, a peaceful smile on her face. The warm sunlight bathed their small family, chasing away the night's chill. She knew the journey ahead would be long, but as long as they had each other, they could overcome anything. Damien held the boys and spread his arms to greet the dawn. She took a picture and called out, "Come on, let's get one together." He turned and pulled her into the frame. The moment the four of them stood together in the brilliant sunrise, their smiles were as bright as the new day. This was the perfect ending to a tumultuous past and the beginning of a peaceful life. She whispered to herself, "I've finally found true happiness with the man I thought I had lost and with our two sons." Tears of joy filled her eyes. Her life was finally complete.